Warning. The Counter Surveil podcast may contain content on hacking, cybersecurity, privacy, and sticking it to the man. By listening, you agree to the following terms. Number 1, not to use anything you learn here for evil. Pinky swear. Number 2, we are not responsible if you get arrested, your computer explodes, or you accidentally hack the planet. That's on you. So don't blame us if you're on 14 watch lists, but you still keep hacking. And choose not to learn better OPSEC, because watching old anime is more fun than learning new tradecraft. And remember, number 3, the NSA and FBI may be tuning in, but hey, that's part of the thrill, right? Wave hello to your FBI agent. They probably really think they're the good guys. Number 4, any resemblance to actual hackers, living or dead, is coincidental, except when it isn't. Wait, what? Number 5, so go grab your Jolt Cola, balls, and clubmate, or something a bit stronger. Be the stereotype everyone thinks you are and fire up your terminal and bite into this wild ride through the interwebs. Number 6, if you get owned, don't come crying to us. Just Control, Alt, and delete your tears away and suck it up. You're a hacker, damn it, not a crybaby. Learn from it, adapt and overcome. There's no crying in hackerable. So remember what the elders of the internet once said. The consequences will never be the same. Just don't blame us if you end up on a government watch list. Number 7, if we share first-person tales of daring hacks and cybercrime, it's for dramatic effect. We're storytellers, not criminals, allegedly. Number 8, our reward is basking in the glow of our screens and the satisfaction of a job well done. And stickers, those are like currency. We won't hawk whereas here, but if we like a tool or site, we may talk about it. Nothing is monetized. Also, screw those VPN ads every YouTuber has nowadays. You should all know better than to sell snake oil. Number 9, any clever puns dropped by Altkey that make you chuckle? Let's be real. Havoc thought of them first. He's just letting her have this one. What a guy. Careful, your internalized misogyny is showing. Number 10, happy hacking, folks. And remember, the only thing more secure than a password and YubiKey with a side channel vulnerability is a tinfoil hat. Trust us, we've tried both. Sledge looks most at home in the hat. This podcast may contain references to long-forgotten memes and internet culture references that were not funny the first time around, but will become so ironically eventually if you don't get the joke. Just smile and nod like you're at a party. All your base belong to us, but we still might not make any money off this podcast. We do this simply because it's fun. It's a labor of love, or at least a labor of elite hacker skills and intentionally bad AI-generated intros. Welcome to Counter Surveil noobs, and lamers are just as welcome as elite hackers with 0 days under their belts and little else. Put on your black hoodies and prepare to jack in instead of off. It's about to get seriously cyber up in here. Remember, it's all just a story. Wink, wink.
Hello, and welcome to the Counter Surveil podcast. I'm your host, Havoc, here with Sledge and Altkey.
Hey.
Hey, Altkey. What's that? So, today we are going to be first covering the news, then talking about software, bills of materials, and enterprise vulnerability management at scale. I know. These are defensive topics. How scary. Sledge, anything you want to add before I hop into the news?
Well, I would say that there's some good episodes coming up. We may or may not get to today's topic today, but we're going to try. Some upcoming episodes are going to be deep diving into ham radio stuff. I got some friends with their extras that have their own towers and make CQs and QRLs all over the world. So they're going to show us their setup, and then talking about some SDR radios and the other different protocols you can use in like ADSB, the typical stuff. And then some SIGINT stuff. And keep it. Stay tuned for our future episodes.
Oh yeah, and don't forget to keep your eyes out for feds, both on our podcast as well as not on our podcast. Hey.
Excellent advice. So let's start out with the news this week. Is my freaking screen updating for you guys? I still see cybersecurity updates February 12th on the screen, at least on the one for the cast here. Doesn't seem.
I see February 17th.
I see Sledge.
All right, let me fix that. There we go. This is better. So, starting off this week in the news, we got some updates. This is just practice for tomorrow when I do this for my company.
Fair enough.
All right. So, just impact on national security. So, Bruce Schneider has released a warning. He is a renowned cybersecurity expert and has raised the alarm about the implications of a Doge-led incursion into government digital frameworks. He asserts that his scenario represents an unprecedented breach threatening the integrity of national security systems and data. Consequences of a Doge-led takeover. The potential Doge takeover could disrupt. I'm just reading my slides. This sucks. Look, I'm not going to just read my slides because I hate when people do that. So let's instead of me doing that, let's just talk about this. What do you guys know about this Doge thing that's happening here? I've heard the news about it. I've heard different people's opinions on it. Me and Autumn go head to head on this one because she's very much has the opinion of one major brand of political discourse, and I'm kind of in the middle, and she's trying to convince me one way. What do you guys think? Good thing, bad thing? Being as apolitical as possible, because this is not a political podcast. This is a hacking podcast.
It's hard to comment on this without
Mhm.
having an opinion.
Like,
But-
I don't know enough about it to actually tell you guys an informed decision simply because I am not a federal government employee, so I'm not seeing the inside workings.
All right, and separate and apart from this, layoffs at CISA. So we've seen a lot of drama with CISA lately. This is CISA and the NVD as well. They've both had dramatic funding cuts. This recent layoff at CISA has led to the entire election integrity department within CISA being laid off. Now, without dragging politics into it, CISA does have a lot of important functions, right? They released the KEV, the Known Exploitable Vulnerabilities Catalog, which lets us people who work in the defensive side of the world know what the attackers are doing so we can better prevent and prepare ahead of time, which is going to tie into a bit of the vulnerability management stuff we're going to be talking about later in the cast. So when it comes to layoffs at CISA, that's not a good thing for anybody. That is arguably, at least for the hacker community, something that's important. Pacer Tracer, welcome.
Hey!
Hey guys.
Fucking Max, am I right?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I had to reboot it. Like, I don't know, my password wouldn't work, and I know I was typing it in right, and I had to reboot it. I've seen that glitch before on an iPad.
Do you need me to look it up for you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
we-
Thank you. Yeah, please do.
I've actually done that for one of my friends. He was like, dude, my password's not working in anything. And I just went on Dhash and I found an old password of his. I'm like, is this it? And then he tried it and it worked. And he was like blown away. He's like, how'd you know my password? I'm
Dude,
like,
I've
retarded.
I've never seen one on Dhash actually work. They're always just super old.
God, so he
Well,
must never change his passwords.
They're usually at least 2 months old because first you have to have a data breach. Then it has to get leaked somewhere like, say, the Fed forums. And then somebody needs to spend the time and dump that into Hashcat. So by the time you get access to that, it's usually, if you have a month-long password policy, you know, it's already, look, another thing, CISA offered guidance not too long ago saying this whole rotate your password every 30, 90 days thing, nah, that's stupid. You don't have to do that.
Where'd he go?
He disconnected as far as his audio and video is concerned. I think maybe he locked himself out of his iPad again. Oh, he's back. He's back.
Don't worry, we're not laughing with you. We're laughing at you.
Oh, I know. It's okay.
So the layoffs at CISA, right? It's not good news for anybody. Is kind of what I was getting at. When you're cutting funding to the people who are letting your his videos.
I'm here. I'm just going to grab a drink. I'll be right back.
He also has a pimple.
You know, there's a secret. If you drink out of a coffee cup and blow into it, nobody knows you're drinking vodka at work.
I'll try to
That's
remember
like-
that.
That's like putting White Claw in a water bottle.
Or he could just drink something that's a darker color so it actually looks like coffee.
Why has it got a head on it?
It is a frappuccino. There you go.
But it's not sticking to your beard.
I mean, I don't have a beard, so problem fixed.
Not everybody is like Autumn and can grow a beard. Okay, media outlet cyber attack. Lee Enterprises. So this was a substantial operational disruption across a bunch of different newspaper and media platforms. The people who have done the investigation so far believe it was the work of skilled attackers exploiting vulnerabilities within their digital infrastructure. Why do they have vulnerabilities within their digital infrastructure? Should you not be patching? Is your patching taking too long? Once again, we're going to be talking about patch management later. So there you go. Service disruption details following the cyber attack. Not only was their data center compromised, also media servers used for caching were compromised. This not only affected that news organization, which was one that kind of distributes news to other places, but also hindered comms within the company itself, its affiliates. And so far, they don't know what the heck happened. They haven't released their little form they're required to put out by the federal government saying, this is what happened and we're investigating and have hired a DFIR form, that little that 8K or 10K form. I forget which one. And who's got the noisy keyboard?
Me. Hi. Woo. So I'm glad you asked.
The keyboard needs to be more clickety clackety. Like my keyboard's very clickety clackety. Talking a clone of an old IBM that is extremely clickety clackety. You gotta have
MX Browns or something.
Oh yeah, it's got Cherry MX switches, man. It's sweet shit.
Cherry's the best.
Indeed.
So about this slide, did they say how long it took for them to detect it?
No, not in their reporting that was released.
Because the average is what, like, I can't remember, almost 4 months or more.
Yeah. The industry average, surprisingly, is more than 4 months from detection to remediation. Now, sometimes you have early detection, and then you put out a news release, and then things turn out to be way worse than they actually were. Like with LastPass, initially it was, our dev environment was breached. And then it was, our dev environment's actually a one-to-one copy of our production environment. But don't worry, it's encrypted. Then it was, despite it being encrypted, I mean, if you had like maybe a couple $100 and some AWS, you could probably crack it. And then it was
MD5 is encryption, right?
All your passwords,
Remember, you can't push to prod on a Friday if there's no difference between dev and prod.
Remember, it's still encryption, even if you implement it solely in JavaScript.
There's a password on my spreadsheet. That counts. And then you always got to push it right before the holidays, too.
You ever watching the news and they're like in a newsroom and you have like a high def camera, a TV rather, and you kind of zoom in a little bit and you see like they have Post-it notes on the screens on monitors with like people's passwords, and you're like, it has to be a honeypot. There's no way, but oftentimes it's not, and it's just sad. Anyway, moving on, vulns and patches. So, Microsoft February Patch Tuesday this month. We have active exploitation going on by North Korea. Not surprising, or people at least pretending to be North Korea. We got a mix of 0 days that have been fixed, as well as Apple getting a critical 0 day fixed. So if you have Apple devices, including an iPhone or an iPad, that's you, Pacer Tracer, it's time for you to go to that area and push your updates. Go into your settings, push your update. Also, February's Patch Tuesday addressed 2 criticals. These security patches are essential in safeguarding systems against severe threats. Part of the just patch your shit is kind of the gist of it. Don't leave your shit unpatched.
I mean, that should be instead of attribution dice, we should have remediation dice. And on every site it says patch your shit.
Yes, we should. Next, YouTube data leak. So this one would let you take any YouTube channel and find out the actual email address that the Google account is registered with. This was due to an exposed API endpoint for a legacy product that's no longer around, which allowed for essentially the attacker, BruteCat, to earn a $10,000 bounty.
I was looking at that, man. That is pretty freaking neat. That is cool.
Indeed.
That's kind of dangerous, too.
Agreed. I mean, look.
I wonder if did they fix it yet?
They fixed it, which is why we know about it, because responsible disclosure is a big thing with Google. I mean, can you imagine not responsibly disclosing with Google and releasing shit before they patched it? But not only would they not give you the money, they'd probably also sue you into oblivion.
And they know who you are. They know what they You do. They're Google. They read your mind. They know the size of the poop you took last.
Yeah, and
They knew the
listening on
exploit
your
before
phone.
you published it.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
And they sell that information to marketers.
And they know
Yeah.
even if you don't publish the exploit and decide just to shut your mouth about it, because they can read your brain and go in there and just like pull the exploit data out of your noggin and patch it anyways.
Are we going to cover that one thing that's bordering on conspiracy about the Ethereum stuff? With
The Chinese Ethereum post
Yeah.
where someone
Yeah.
burned how much is it?
they burned $1 million for that. Let me find that one.
You'll have to fill me in on this one.
That was in
I'm not
the
sure.
host chat, or
They're talking
That
about
meme.
brain chips.
that was. Yeah.
They claim
it's
that
definitely bordering on
people
the
are being
conspiracy.
manipulated.
But they
Here's the thing. The part
they
of
burned
the,
$1 million to do it though.
the actual
That's like a lot of
translation
money.
doesn't actually say anything about brain chips, does it?
All right, so hold on.
I don't speak
Flip a
the
coin.
language.
Who wants to give me the TLDR on this?
Go for it, Havoc.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, great! The guy who half read it when I was posting in the chat.
All right.
Yep. The TLDR.
Pacer,
one,
are you
Bob.
super familiar?
Okay.
A little bit.
So let me find it real quick, and we can just cover it from there.
Let me just send it to you because you're still on screen.
I know, and everybody gets to see it. It's great.
Do you even OPSEC, bro?
Yeah, no.
So I OPSEC, bro, but you know what? I also don't usually share my entire screen because I normally just share a tab, but it wasn't working. So now I failed. I have failed at OPSEC, and I need to be punished. Evelyn, get the whip.
For shame.
Now remember, everyone, if you want to see that footage, you have to subscribe to our Only Pwns. Accessible at. Come on, put the link up. Come on.
If you visit this link, you will get pwned. No,
Onlypwns.io.
There we go.
Unfortunately,
Capital S in the
Until
comments
March.
for shame.
again, it's hard fail.
Okay, so the headline is that someone burnt 500 ETH, 1.38 million, to spread a message in Chinese that reads, "The bosses of can-do investment, Fing Zheng Zhu Ying," I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, used brain machine weapons to persecute all company employees and former employees, and they themselves are also controlled. Brain computer chips that have been militarized and deployed on a large scale, and all military powers are using base stations, radios, and nano brain computer chips to control all citizens. I think that's a little off the deep end.
The number one Ghost in the Shell with a side of, fuzzing.
So
and-
To burn $1 million on this, though, just to get it written into the chain, and that's the story there. The schizo guy burns $1 million to spread schizo shit is pretty much the.
last I knew,
who knows? Maybe I'm wrong.
Last I knew, they didn't have a solution for brain human chip interfaces that solve the scar tissue
Works.
problem. So when you have,
They don't.
yeah,
I actually have published research on this. Believe it or not, y'all can look that up.
you know what I'm talking about then. The
I
scar,
do.
yeah.
You can't really encapsulate as well as solve the scar tissue issue and have an outside connection from the chip. That has not been done to what I know at this point.
Yeah.
On a technical level, how did they do
the
this?
amount of, well, they're saying that they use certain frequencies, like similar to RFID, to power nano chips, which is, you really have to be, that falls off with distance so fast. You'd need a huge radio transmitter, and people would be able to detect these signals pretty easily.
That's what the 5G is. It's the 5G. No, just kidding.
It's the cancer device.
That's the 6G. Shush. Sheesh. We're not supposed to talk about 6G in public. No.
It's making the
they
mosquitoes
claim that
gay.
this is,
I was
there was a
when
conspiracy
we
a while
had
back
Four
that
Loko.
this is why they freed up the radio frequency spectrum for broadcast TV is very good.
Ooh,
for
you're right.
Energizing devices, and then they moved everyone to DTV, and everyone's like, why are they keeping this spectrum? Private?
They're actually doing that in the U.S. for UWB stuff.
Okay.
Ooh.
Oh, and
David Flex, you wanted to say something?
No, I was talking about Four Loko being much better than 6G.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh God. What if 5 Loco is just the data chip in our noggins that we don't know is there?
I think you've cracked the code.
They'd better brand it that. I'd love it. Then everybody starts getting sick.
All right.
That is interesting about the UWB though, because Sledge just absolutely just put down the the rope and I'm going to pick it up and run off the cliff with it. I'm interested in what's happening with that next national spectrum analysis, right? That the FCC was doing.
They're interfering with your signal. You're cutting out.
Yeah. Is that true? Am I cutting out?
No, you're good.
No, I'm discussing with you.
You have to say something just a little bit worse.
That
And so anyway,
UWB stuff, I was hoping to make a whole episode about it, but give us the TLDR.
Well, it's just, with the administration change and everything going on, I'm wary about whether or not that's going to be completed. And it's one of the kind of requirements for the UWB utilization in the US. They passed and standardized all that in Europe, but they have not yet done that here. And until about a month ago, it was kind of a shoo-in that it was going to happen. And now I'm not sure where that stands anymore. So that's an interesting thing to watch.
The FCC won't let us be.
They won't let me be UWB.
Free to people.
Hex the planet.
On this podcast, we should be down with other people's personal wireless signals. I mean,
I'll spin up my.
Wait. There's a cat. Everyone, Pacer Tracer has a cat. We need to stop
He
the
was
entire cast.
he was attacking me. This is Milo.
Oh,
He has a radio frequency tracker collar on. See?
Hey, I'm not the only one with a cat that bugs me when I'm on video.
Holy crap! The feds are gonna chase you through your cat.
I know. Well, it's a homing beacon, so it generates.
That's one of the other things that they claim in that crazy thing that they're controlling the animals in that whole. They're controlling the animals to spy on you. Was in there too.
See,
That's why they're all humping each other.
I'd be more apt to believe that they changed the code in the simulation than before. I believe brain chip interfaces and nanochips are.
I'm with you on that because we all know this world's just running like Windows XP Service Pack 1 on the shittiest hardware some alien could find.
The architect died and fell asleep. Like he's long dead and he's just been running. And
he probably died in 2011. And that was the real end of the world.
I'm good with all that. I'm good with Optimus Prime being real. I'm good with like Megatron, right? But I am not okay with them claiming they can control a cat. It ain't happening.
Even I can't control a cat, and they like my pets.
Exactly,
you have to believe.
Like no one's gonna control a cat anytime soon. I say that as a woman, so.
Hey, we got Justin Brown watching.
Hey,
I like that guy. Okay.
Do I know that guy? I don't think I know that guy. Oh well, what's up, Justin?
we might know that guy.
He does some stuff with us, volunteer shit. Good dude.
Cool.
Crypto guy. Next we have arrest of Phobos / 8-base leaders. And when I heard arrest of Phobos, my first brain thought was retarded. What, Vis? They got Vis? What did he do now? But no, we're talking about the Phobos ransomware group, not Phobos, Dan Tetler's company. So this is two DOJ.
It's the same thing.
The opinions expressed on this podcast are not those of the individual.
Yes,
They do
like-
not represent the yada 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 of our employer. Okay. Phobos / 8-base leaders. So DOJ got him. High profile arrest, decisive move against entities responsible for multiple cyber crimes. Victim impact cost about 16 million. Compromised over 1,000 victims. Yada yada yada. Europol helped. They collaborated closely. Yada 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 yada. More cyber criminals down. You know what that means? There's just more room in the market for more cyber criminals.
Speaking of, hire me, please. I need a job. It's been a year.
Tactics used by Russian threat actors. They're mimicking official comms. So they're sending out emails as legitimate agencies, taking advantage of holes in Microsoft's 365 bullshit where you can echo spoof a known address. They are
It's actually just their ChatGPT subscription.
Yep.
cripple them by removing access to ChatGPT. They are exploiting device code authorization. So if you ever like log into Google, right? You know the difference between logging into Google to sync all your devices and all your Google services to a new browser versus logging into Google to authenticate to a website. It's kind of like that with Microsoft, except more retarded, because they're essentially enrolling devices as if they are on-prem devices, which you really should be locking down if you're an AD administrator. You should not be allowing not Copilot, the other pilot, autopilot devices to automatically enroll just by authenticating and providing a multi-factor code. You should be controlling that from your end. So we're also seeing device code phishing attacks.
I was just going to say that.
I heard
I've been hit by a couple of those already.
I've heard municipalities that have obviously they deploy MDM on all of their. What's up, Sledge?
Back to Havoc. I interrupted him.
Okay. No, you didn't. You got to shut me up sometimes.
I heard they were buying devices like that end up being, recycled out, and they end up in China, and they extract any certificates that are left on there that, because sometimes devices that are retired, aren't properly wiped, and they're using, because they have certs on them like AD certs, and they're checking their MDM and they're seeing devices enroll from Chinese IP addresses, and they're like, uh-oh.
You think they up their tradecraft and get a good VPN?
I was gonna say, yeah, like that sounds like a real miss on the. You went all the way there and then forgot to put your ski mask on.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you can just straight up call and convince somebody like, "Hey, can I use your phone real quick for two-factor or something?"
Well, there's also just getting position on the network and then just looking for an open relay, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you talk about like back in the day, Adrian Lamo used to use the reverse proxies that were misconfigured to get at the corporate networks. A lot of these same vulnerabilities are very similar in methodology. It's just different, more modern tactics.
If they were smart, right? And not that I'm going to give them like a leg up, but like Azure AD has this really cool application proxy feature. So you could literally just define an arbitrary, if you had any level of enterprise app admin role, you could potentially define a reverse proxy connection into something like Power Apps, and then utilize that platform to establish like a actual internal link where it would look like you're coming from a Microsoft hosted Azure proxy IP.
Interesting.
Something. Why would they not mask their last leg?
I mean, it is really dumb and poor OPSEC to think that you're not going to see a new device checking in from China and that people don't have rules set up to look for that specifically in their SIMs.
I want to say it's one of the base rules in Defender, which is now called Intune.
I mean, that would straight up set off suspicious login flags everywhere.
Mm-hmm. That makes
Assuming
me wonder
they have that.
Well, that makes me wonder if these were not like the test to see what would get them caught, as opposed to the actual attacks.
Yeah, or
I mean, it
maybe
could have been their canaries.
Have Chinese, Chinese offices, so they have to allow some access.
That's true.
Maybe.
Yes.
As Porter Tradecraft just put it, thank God for dumb bad guys.
They keep us employed.
That they do.
They do?
Thank you.
You're like, it's not going to work. There's no way.
The smart ones can just check out, but the dumb ones can stay around. We need the dumb ones. I need to get employed again, okay?
And reminder, don't get political because we're going on to challenges in cybersecurity legislation. Okay. Open letter from security experts. Coalition of 193 experts has publicly condemned the UK government's demand for Apple to create an iCloud backdoor. This open letter highlights deep concerns. Good. I agree with this one, personally. I don't think the government should have backdoors in your encryption because when the government has it, it's only a matter of time till other people have it. So
anybody, no backdoors, period.
There's a reason we should have secure end-to-end expectation of privacy and secure comms. You know, if I want to talk to somebody in private, it's not anybody else's business what the hell I'm talking to my friend or coworker or anybody else who I want to talk to in private about. And I should have an expectation of privacy. I think EFF has fought hard for this. This is in UK, so they're not involved in this bullshit. They're involved in different bullshit over here. But in general, this is the kind of thing the EFF would go and fight for, you know, or at least they think they should fight for. And this undermines shit, man. It undermines, you know, right to privacy for one, but it also, when you're putting a backdoor in your product so that the government can see what you're doing, the government might, you know, you're setting a precedent now. If they want to do business in China, they also would have to then give China backdoor access to this. And do you really want the CCP reading your freaking signal messages? I mean, come on. It's
not like that, but like the government isn't all that good about keeping their secret secret, as everyone in this chat knows. If there's a backdoor, someone who's not government is eventually going to use it.
Government's going to govern.
Well, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate on this one because I'm 100% in the same boat with everybody else here, right? Like, don't mess with my encryption. However, looking at the state of security and the level of which everything is compromised, maybe there is a counter argument to be made here. If I knew, right, if they didn't have the ability to like hide the fact that they were intercepting my communications, I would be okay with it. It would be like if my alarm system at home went off and it calls the cops, right? It doesn't let like it, right? It can signal you. You have different modes of discreteness in terms of the, oh shit, something's wrong here, right? You have your distress code, right? So it's going to say you've disarmed the system, right? But you also know that means, red and blue showing up soon. Versus,
I feel like the difference between those 2 points is consent.
Yes, right. So if I could consent to knowing that I'm going to have an idea when that happens, I would be okay right now with the benefits of a national ability to react to nation state actors, because at the end of the day, like, that's not happening right now, right? And this conversation here is one of the challenges that we have around that issue. So let's just assume that maybe the UK and the US and China and Russia have the capability to compromise that at some level anyway, right? Would you want that from your country, and would you want to know that they can, when they do it, not if they can, but when?
We already kind of do.
Because if I know, then other countries know and other APTs know. So if I know and I'm privy to that information, you know, it's pretty much it's common knowledge then. So I wouldn't want that to be spread.
Right. That gives also, it's a bit of a insurance policy, right? They'd better be very, very convincing that they need to do that, because they're gonna burn.
I mean,
right.
The only one who's got access to the root CA on everybody's computer to decrypt SSL already is the governments, right? So them and the actual companies like Komodo that are signing the certs. So they can already decrypt SSL, TLS 1.2, 1.3 traffic on the fly, just like as if it was an IDS, right? So there's no expectation of privacy with things going over HTTPS if you're talking about the government. But if you're talking about your average hacker, your average civilian, or even your network security guys, they can't see shit going through HTTPS unless they've got a cert on your box. That's a reasonable expectation of privacy.
Or if they're in cahoots with the CA itself.
Or if they're running Minim proxy and happen to have a cert that they somehow got that's, you know, signed by a root CA.
Compromised intermediate. Which is
a nation state.
Well, no, Google just kicked out one of the primary cert providers with Komodo. That they said, you know, failure.
It was Komodo, actually.
It was systemic failure to, implement.
Secure their enterprise at multiple levels. Yeah.
Right.
Multiple times they've been compromised.
But before that, I can't think of one that was.
GoDaddy had a threat actor in their environment for like 6 years, and they were literally just stealing people's domains. And they'd be like, "Oh, sorry, you must have screwed up your two-factor and given it to a bad guy," never admitting to it until like 6 years later. You know, this kind of shit happens. That's not like unheard of.
Was Komodo the first one that got popped? Or I swear the one I'm thinking of starts with Digi.
Yeah, Digi.
Or DigiNotar or something.
Oh. That one?
Yeah. What was that? Digi.
I don't
Can't
remember.
remember. That was a long time ago.
That was like a year ago. It's not that long ago.
I remember this from like 10 years ago.
I had to do a replacement of those certificates because we had signed off of there. DigiSign.
No, it wasn't DigiSign.
You sure?
We have.
Yeah,
I've
it was.
seen,
It was DigiNotar.
requests.
It's on
Oh,
Wikipedia.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
2011.
Porter Tradecraft
Request
pointed
to
out
switch
that.
it.
Oh, sorry. I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say Porter Tradecraft pointed out in the comments that China already has a backdoor for iCloud, and Apple actually set up a totally different, separate instance of iCloud for the Chinese, like people and government, because they have to comply with the national security state, right?
Right. I was going to say, when it comes specifically to the end-to-end encryption that we are using in most of our products, we do have modern quantum-resistant encryption that can be used, but there's more of a transport overhead with that. It can slow shit down just a little bit, kind of like when you're turning on SMB signing in a Windows environment, it slows down your transfers just a little bit. But I would also argue that that transport overhead is worth it for the increased security. What do you guys think about that?
I think the foundational infrastructure is still compromised to the point where, unless it's perfect, pitch perfect, right, that there's going to be challenges with this until that's addressed from rebuilding security layers in from the hardware level up.
I was going to bring up the point.
SBOMs.
Yeah.
There's a
SBOMs are coming
reasonable
up.
expectation of privacy in private, businesses, but what about like layers of government? So like, let's say you're at a particular level, how do you, and it's pretty political, how do you have a reasonable expectation from the layers above you? You don't, right?
Especially when half of them don't know what they're doing.
Right. Yeah.
And the people who make the legislation are as far removed from the actual people doing the security as possible.
To your point, I've seen a box with a root, CA interception certificate on it, where it just decrypt anything, and it in a fashion where you can't tell in the cert chain that someone is in your traffic unless they send you a modified packet, right?
I've bought Cisco devices at government auction and extracted certs from them, and it's fucking horrifying.
Oh God.
So
yeah,
this is a uniquely Western position as well, right? Like the rest of the world is just like, you don't get that here in most places. And there are places still in the world, I'll say, that intentionally just don't look at that problem and are running, 15-year-old RSA certs. Just
head in the sand.
Everybody plays in their sandbox, right? And thus they just leave it be. Right?
Yep.
There's turds in the sandbox. Don't go over there to eat lunch.
I like that.
Talking about doing what Let's Encrypt does, but for everybody, where your certs expire after 90 days, and that being a standard they set forth. It's hard enough to get certs that are less than a year to be the standard when some CAs let you have like 5-year certs, and then everything like BitSight and Scorecard are going to ding you on that bullshit. So getting it to 90 days, unless you've got really good automation and maybe access to the underlying file system to be able to run CertBot, which a lot of people who are running like on third-party hosting providers don't have access to, I think it could cause a big shitstorm if they make that particular change.
This episode is not provided to you by Let's Encrypt, but still, go use it.
This episode is also not sponsored by Cloudflare because they use 10-year certs, so they definitely do not count.
What's the level at which we're saying this should be applied, right? Is it the individual level? Is it at the local government municipalities? Is it the home? Is it the school or the federal government? Like where are we comfortable making a compromise? Because I'm going to tell you, like, even if we got the best PKI infrastructure in the world my mom is still clicking like accept, anyway. I don't understand all these like hex numbers and, colons and like, what is this? I just want to talk to people, right? So
phishing is always going to be a thing.
Yeah, it's an education issue above technology. Yeah. So I wonder where that trade-off is, right?
I guess it depends on the cost to implement and where. But at the end of the day, yeah, phishing is always going to be a thing. So I don't know if it's even worth it.
Right. I'd almost rather have the notification that my traffic was sniffed, right? Because that it's like I don't have a good analogy here, honestly, because the privacy in the home, you're right here in America to be not filmed in your home, right? But there's no expectation of privacy standing in the street. But my
Mhm.
wireless signal literally crosses the street from my home. So
That's a good point, actually.
like, where are we with the
And
physical
we've
versus digital reality?
And we've seen really interesting developments where even using consumer grade hardware, like an array of 6 ESP8266s on a card, you can actually directionally see where somebody is in a house based on their Wi-Fi
Oh,
that's propagating through it.
Ye-
Oh, people have reverse engineered the stuff the Israelis did and made it open source. Like it's out there to build and see. And you can even have an app now on Android where you can compare it with this thing and scan the area and see like freaking through walls where people are. It's insane.
We just got a notification that our data has been sniffed.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
also,
Thank you.
Oh
the,
shit! They're
Yeah.
supposed to pay extra for that.
As I know,
Safe word's banana.
that thing about Wi-Fi going into the street, Google got in trouble for that because they were driving around with those cars mapping that out for their stuff.
Yep.
they have a Mac database. You used to be able to actually query it. Now you
Mhm.
can't. But
Yeah, you can still use
that being
Weigel
said,
with fairly good results.
with the
Yeah.
right antenna,
Those data hoarders.
you can
Those good fellas.
sniff someone's Wi-Fi from space on a satellite. Like your Wi-Fi goes way further than you think. It's sniffable up to, I don't know, 20 miles away.
It goes
So,
up.
Antenna,
I wanna,
right? Yes.
I wanna
Yeah.
pivot, and we should do a longer, in-depth dive on like the wireless advancements. So UWB, we were talking about earlier, one of the primary drivers for them implementing that, two basically. One, they're required to implement physical and network layer security protocols from the ground up, right, to address the fact that wireless and Bluetooth and NFC and RFID, and none of those have fundamental security layers there, right? And number two is the ability to do fine grain ranging down to like sub 5 centimeters. So if you carry a phone in your pocket that was made in the last 6 years or so, the iPhone 13, I think, and the U1 chip, right, is a UWB chip that with 3 of those, you could basically, you could tell if somebody was taking a crap or like eating an, or like the fine grain ranging on that is going to be a privacy field day.
Well, they did that for their tags, their air tags, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
So you could locate your. They even have a version of it on the remote for Apple
the-
TV.
Well,
Which is interesting.
it's going big scale with the connected cars, right? X2C. So now every vehicle in the next 5 years is going to have enough of those transmitters to build a triangulation for anybody that's near them.
Well, you have your RF persona, which is trackable, but there's other metrics that all vehicles have had since like 2006 that are trackable, right? Like TPM.
Yeah,
True.
technically.
I mean, we also have beacon analysis alone, which can be used to identify a device even if the Mac is rotating. You're beaconing out for the same Wi-Fi and Bluetooth devices. It's fairly easy to correlate that's your fucking device, regardless of where you're going. And if you connect to airport Wi-Fi, they're tracking your device regardless of where the hell you go for like a week, just because of reasons. So, I mean, it's fairly easy to build a device profile, looking at network traffic and looking at correlating that with Bluetooth traffic. And I think that's already built. I mean, they use that in shopping malls. It's not like it's secret technology at this point. They combine it with the little beacons that both do ultrasonic sound as well as there's ones that do Bluetooth low energy and
5 meters.
They pretty much, yep.
So there's my challenge. So BLE5 would be 5 meters, right? With some of the wireless tech that you were talking about with the multi transmitters, you can get to 1.5 meters, I think is the best previously, right? So the next round is that much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Accurately at 200 meters. And so it becomes, and the device is intentionally specifically assigned to you and your identity, whereas the attacks you're talking about, yes, like scientifically they were achievable, right? In research environments, yes, you could do it in the mall. Could you target a VIP using that technique? It'd be much easier to do other low-tech things, right? And this introduces this whole concept of, right, the ability to backdoor technology and the ability for that to have direct ramifications on individual, like, physical security, as opposed to, like, I'd have to hit your house with a rocket to say, I got the 5 meters, right? versus this. So in terms of the UK being able to go into there, I don't know. I'm on the fence on it, really. I will be suing them for GDPR, and we're going to make millions and bankrupt the UK government. But
There you go.
I'm just...
There you go. All right. Before we move on to emerging threats,
Are
we
you
have
tired
words
of
from
using
our
VPNs
non-existent
that are
sponsor.
slower than your grandma's gossip circle? Do you want to secure your internet without breaking the bank? Well, I've got the solution for you. Roll your own fucking VPN. First, you'll need to buy a cheap VPS. Don't worry, it's like renting a tiny apartment for your VPN server. Then install WireGuard. It's like setting up a super secure, high-tech tunnel for your internet traffic. But wait, there's more. With WireGuard, you get blazing fast speeds and top-notch security. It's like having your own personal internet ninja guarding your data. Just generate some keys, configure your server and clients, and you're good to go. It's easier than making a decent cup of coffee. So why settle for slow, overpriced VPNs when you can roll your own? Get a cheap VPS, set up WireGuard, and join the ranks of the VPN elite. Trust me, it's worth the effort. Roll your own fucking VPN. It's like DIY for your digital security. Roll your own fucking VPN. Secure, fast, yours.
I have to say, I agree. I just switched from NetMaker to WireGuard, and it's great.
Oh yeah, and
RYOF
for extra-
VPN.
And for extra pwn points, please use Linux and then use WireGuard. Oh yeah.
Did we get paid for that?
Do we have a
No,
sponsorship?
No, we don't. I
Someone-
literally just made that within video.
Please
like,
use
as
our
we were
affiliate
talking
link
about it.
for your VPS host.
Yeah, the affiliate
Oh, yeah.
link is only Pwns, and it is available at DigitalOcean. Totally.
Just make sure you don't have Honey installed.
You
Yeah.
should have made. Oh, that honey fiasco was fucking hilarious.
You know,
Go
just
ahead.
to put a point on you were talking about that Bluetooth sniffing technology. I'm pretty sure we have somebody in the audience that was an executive for a company that pretty much invented all the patents for that. If you look up on Google Patents.
Yeah, I'm
Interesting
familiar with who
stuff.
that person is.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I saw one of his comments.
So we got some emerging threats. Bad Pilot Access Broker. They are related to the Sandworm Group, and they have been using sophisticated hacking techniques and dumping stuff to access brokers. Essentially, access brokers, for those of you who are uninitiated, are when asshole hacks company but doesn't have skills to then pivot further into company, they resell access to initial access brokers like Magbo Marketplace, for instance. And then those assholes bid on places that have been compromised because they themselves don't have the skills to hack from external, but they are good at internal. So they collaborate and essentially pay for the access that these other assholes have got. And then the second threat actor takes over, tries to exfiltrate data or ransomware computers or God knows whatever the hell else. You know what I think would be a fun fuckery exercise? If we were to take and build a VM lab that looked very much like a big company and then sell access to that to an initial access broker so they can compromise the fake environment that we have spun up for them so they think they're getting all this good customer data and just steal money from the threat actors. That would be fun.
I would do it, but I can't expose anything directly to the internet. I'm not willing.
That's not what an OnlyPwn says.
And this is a reminder that our OnlyPwns is the only exposed port Sledge has to the internet. Please check out our OnlyPwns.
All my lab shit goes through Cloudflare tunnels and WireGuard and whatnot.
That would be fine. In fact, if you toss their little bullshit shell on there with Magbo, I'm pretty sure that you just get to resell it regardless of if it's got internet access directly or not. It goes through their Pivot C2. But that's
Yeah,
just
maybe.
a theoretical situation, not something anybody should engage in real life.
Do not try this at home.
Advice.
Definitely don't
this
make
at
honey
home.
pot or anything and sell it to them. Don't do that. Really, don't.
Actually, no. Do try this at home and tell us how it went.
And then come on our cast. And remember, this is all hypothetical.
Yep, no one's done any of this.
Recently, I was doing
Make
some
sure you
reverse
freeze
engi-
it.
Oh, sorry.
Go
I was gonna say, recently, I was doing some reverse engineering on a Jet KVM clone, which is something on Kickstarter. It's a little like cubed KVM, and there's a couple of Chinese clones that wanted to beat them to the market, and I was doing some analysis, and one of them was using Tailscale to punch a hole through your network and
Yeah,
start exfiltrating your data to some Chinese server.
you beat me to it.
I've seen them use Cloudflare tunnels, like the free tier, to exfiltrate data, which is just
Ooh.
like, it's only 100 meg. I don't know how much data you're going to be able to exfiltrate through that. Otherwise, it's just a backup C2 channel. But still, crazy.
That is kind of
Just a
cheeky.
bit. Just a little bit now.
It can send like 1/18 of a nude.
Can we just stick to the
That's
old
like-
methods
yeah.
of using like the Discord CDN to host your malware? And, like, come on.
They really just
Um,
wanted to go back to AOL like download days. The GIF was like,
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, I would do
It
DNS
released that hack
tunnels.
like it's 2001. All right.
One pixel at a time.
sorry,
DNS tunnels over iodine rarely ever got caught. And it's 53 and it's going on UDP until it gets too big and needs to go on TCP. I don't think anyone's ever caught me when I was using that as my covert channel. On
Nice.
penetration tests, of course. It's Indian spyware revealed. So this Indian company has been
Italian.
caught.
Italian.
Oh, wow. How did I do that?
Hey, Havoc, your alcoholism is not
Yeah.
being covered very well.
Racist.
That was an
Hey,
off by
Mario.
one error. .in.it.
Dude, I have sexlexia and I don't remember the names of the women I've slept with. So let's move on. We have impact of malicious apps here. So their activities are beyond immediate malware warnings. Essentially, millions of people are affected due to these malicious apps that have been released. The Lookout analysis has confirmed malicious capabilities in disguised applications, reinforcing importance of security awareness, security vetting. Look, who has ever had application whitelisting work in an environment? I have had this tried at many companies. I've never seen it properly implemented where they don't try it and then say F it. Okay, you, hands up.
Yeah.
You're getting a spotlight. Talk about how the
Okay.
hell you made that work in real life, because I've never had success making that work in real life.
Yeah, I worked at CyberArk, and we deployed EPM, and it depended on how much money the people and how priority it was. But you are correct that in the majority of cases, right, people, companies, in fact, I've never seen individuals do this unless they're from this community and have specific reason. But from a company perspective, right, or a scale perspective, most of the time it gets turned on in training mode. And I'll say the technology is not sufficiently mature enough to allow a level of confidence to make the switch, right? And we all let's go to CrowdStrike, right? What happened there, and all the way back to Carbon Black, when it used to just be like, you know what I'm going to do today is choose violence and blacklist LSAS, right?
So I've got a story about this
Yeah.
too. I did 2 different tests for a company where it was basically blacklist. Well, it was a breakout test. So you get logged into a Windows machine and the goal is to break out of it. And they had application whitelisting. Couldn't run anything, nothing worked. But CertUtil did. So you can use CertUtil to download and then execute, and then boom, we're in, done. Test over.
And didn't catch that was a child process and lock that shit
No.
down, because CrowdStrike does that
Cert
now.
extensions, loading cert extensions from domain URLs.
And that's some good living off the land shit right there, man. Like
Yep.
CertUtil's a go-to, right? But
Oh,
there's
yeah.
like a whole list of those freaking programs that do the same shit. At one point, Microsoft Teams, their update mechanism, you could use to do the same shit with CertUtil. Like, they fixed it, but it was a pretty decent way to pull down and run an executable from the internet at one point.
I was just confused because they've been hit with the CertUtil thing 3 times, and never fixed it. So is there like a challenge to whitelisting CertUtil or what?
Ooh, it's easier to CertUtil is pretty specific. You should be able to monitor for that, like TTP, like that tactic.
Mhm.
I'd say it's easier to identify that and respond to it than it is to block it and not cause irrevocable damage if you have a cert expire and you have to use that to do anything.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can't even log into the box to change the policy to allow the CertUtil because you just shut down your AD authentication pipeline. Yeah, risk versus reward not worth things.
You're the risk analyst. What do you think?
I'm gonna
calculated risk. Calculated risk doesn't always work.
Let's look. So whitelisting on the endpoint, right? The end user device is very difficult because people are like cats, right? We're hard to predict. But if you step back and look at projects like Nixos, right, that's trying to do like define the build, all the dependencies of the build, which gets kind of into supply chain stuff, right? And ultimately,
someone said Nix OS. Yay! Sorry.
Yeah. No, mag support for that, right? But that is.
I like anything with an immutable file system. I think that's
what's an effective whitelist. That's a whitelist, right? You've whitelisted every executable that needs to be on the system and only those executables, and you don't add things outside of that, right?
But with like CyberArk EPM, I've used this to whitelist shit. I have far more success blacklisting because whitelisting, when you're with like a very large organization where you have people in all different like walks of life who are doing all different things on their computers, to have that pure list of like, these are the programs that are okay, but these are the programs that are not okay, changes every day. And that becomes somebody's full-time job of just updating a whitelist. And sometimes you need more than one person. And some companies might have some money for like a 5-person security team, but they certainly don't have money to allocate to 2 other people who are just going to be doing whitelisting all day or setting up ZPN, like zero trust.
Even the sketchy strip club down the street can hire a body like a doorman.
Well, that's a different threat model. I'm saying like the sketchy threats, their threat model is different because they're one location, they have one set of computers. I know you're using an analogy here, but just like small businesses, yeah, that'd be easy to roll out. But when you're dealing with places with like multiple office locations across the country, different users doing different things, to have a set whitelist of programs is going to be somebody's job all day long to update and being like, oh, I can't use this program. And that just becomes like, if you could automate that part where somebody submits a request, and that'd be a fucking CyberArk $1 million idea right there, where you automate the submission and approval process.
To build on your point, Havoc, yes, it would require a couple more people, but if they can't afford that, it ends up being more hats for all the other security guys to wear. And then everybody just gets overloaded and burned out.
How confident would y'all be to put up a perimeter with basically like a tripwire, right? Enable EPM when the tripwire goes off, right? And we've kind of tried this back in the day with FileMon and right. And I'm even going to go back to Red Forest from Microsoft. That was a whitelisting attempt, right? To air-gap the whitelisted application and identity.
I was going to say, to your point, Tripwire is one of the most effective tools that I've seen utilized to detect threat actors. And if you use it to like monitor certain like low-level system calls, it doesn't even matter what security layer software. If you're running LSM, SE Linux, you're running.
Whoever does this and makes $1 bazillion, please throw me some, just an envelope full of cash.
But to that point, I've also seen like LSM used as the layer to manage a rootkit that is like invisible to the system for most administrators, and you're backdooring the security tool in that case, right?
I've been on this kick about canary tokens, and I'm wondering if you couldn't actually canary token executables like CertUtil, right? Until you basically did an injection on, you've initiated the proper sequence to get the real executable, right? Everything else there is effectively canary, right? So if you just
I feel like it works on paper, but
It works on Pacer. Pacer,
Yeah.
you know this list is in your infrastructure right
I'm
now.
gonna need you to open a command prompt and or sudo and try this. Run this command, please. Right, you whitelisting, you're going the other direction. You're saying, okay, you can have this access, right? Some of it's going to be privileged, potentially, right? And so the challenge is that change. So what if you just reverse that and said the change always comes first, and based on the condition, right? Then you're either executing properly or not.
Right.
Because then I'm loading up my
Agreed.
machine, my Linux host with command.exe, right? Or ntds.dat
Mhm.
file, right?
Oh, ntds.dat's got tons of fun information in there. Okay, so when it comes to like Active Directory compromise, do you guys see that as a continuing trend? Like they're gonna keep seeing new tools, new things for exploiting AD, or do you think threat actors are gonna pivot more to like cloud environment stuff, focus more on like records that are in databases like S3 buckets, shit like that? Where do you think it's going?
Yes, the attack surface is just getting bigger.
I would say that with Intune, I've seen Microsoft break things like that you would expect to work, like being able to just join a computer to a domain normally, because they're like, oh, this is security risk, so they close it off. So, but I think that the tool set to exploit Active Directory is in need of a refresh, but because Microsoft's making a lot of changes, and I don't think our tools have necessarily kept pace with that. But I think it's due, and it will happen, and people will continue to exploit that attack surface.
I think also like attackers are going to go for low hanging fruit at every opportunity, right? It's oftentimes it's a crime of opportunity. So the fact that last week another thing that came out was Cisco being a compromised
God damn
Cisco
it.
credentials being found and Cisco confirming Mimikatz on the network. Like Mimikatz, guys, come on, like what are y'all serious?
There's already Kiwi's the new version.
Yeah. Well, I guess my point there, like a company like Cisco, I would expect to have a budget and a team and a capability to prevent Mimikatz on their network, right? However,
or at least detect it.
Right. Yeah, and here we are. So I don't
To be
feel like
fair,
they have a good.
that was a whole conversation a few years back because people were having a hard time detecting that.
Yeah, because you had golden ticket. Like
Yeah, but I mean, look, Mimikatz, it's fairly easy to develop tools that are going to detect that specific tool. But then you look at Kiwi, right, and other tools that do the same shit. I mean, you can build detections that are going to detect when these tools are in use based on the logs, but there are other ways to get that same information, and it's just a cat and mouse game.
There also tends to be, if you use the default tool, right, that's available, people tend to try to make these tools very loud and obvious, so that they're easy to signature. But if you slightly modify them and you know what you're doing, I've seen people make stealthy versions of pretty much every tool out there, including C2 channel tools, right?
There's a lot of research going into
Malleable C2 profiles.
Yeah, shipping your malware straight up to VirusTotal, right? If it's not detected,
like I'd argue the proof point.
I would never test with VT though. I would test with some local bullshit.
Do not ever upload something that you're working on to VirusTotal.
Right.
That gets distributed to all the freaking signature lists.
I learned that one the hard way.
Yeah. People doing it right are not.
If you're doing exploit development, do it in a Faraday cage.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, none of this is stopping a nation state at the end of the day, right?
Right. But we're talking about stopping your average script kiddie who's trying to make a few bucks by doing some ransomware bullshit, or a gang of non-nation state oriented, financially motivated threat actors who are hacking for profit. This shit will stop them, especially if you're doing it right. Keeping your shit up to date with patch management is great. And we're going to be talking about that very shortly, because that's supposed to be the theme along with SBOMs. It's just taking a while longer than I thought to get through the news, and that's my fault. But but when it comes down to like the nuts and bolts, if you have done everything right, but then you have an idiot user who clicks a link, your best prevention against that is like a combination of a good stack. Like you have shit that should catch it before it gets onto their computer. But once it gets onto their computer, you have to have a good EDR that's then also going to kill it before it can do any damage. And it should be using heuristic-based analysis, not just static, in my opinion, because things, you might have false positives you got to deal with, but
to that point, right? It's about defense in depth.
I was just going to say that.
Having multiple vendors, like with all the VPN exploits that have come out recently, that's a talking point we could.
And
address.
If you're doing zero trust right, if somebody rides in on a session cookie, that's only going to be good for that particular set of applications that they've compromised, and they can't then reuse said session cookie to log into everything else within your infrastructure without re-authenticating. That's the way it should work.
Yep. And even if they do get onto a box with EDR, does that EDR have the capability to isolate?
Well, let's talk about the real elephant in the room here is that if you don't have an ability to identify and respond properly, then none of this matters, right? You can
there's no silver bullet. You got to have a team.
Well, you've got to, you could be a team of one that just has the identification, right? Early detection and response capability. Let's assume compromise, right? Because while y'all were talking about this, and yes, 100% defense in depth, right? Slow them down. I was just imagining, what is that? Like the machine that is overly complex for no reason at all, like it rolls the ball down and puts it in and pulls it up and then releases a straw.
Oh yeah, something Goldberg machine.
Yeah, Rube Goldberg, right? That's what I feel like security tooling is today. It's a Rube Goldberg machine.
For those of you who don't know what a Rube Goldberg machine is, think Pee Wee Herman and how he makes breakfast. That's pretty much a Rube Goldberg machine.
Yeah. It's just that instead of eggs, we're delivering payloads of malware. These days.
And those payloads sometimes work.
Wait, you can afford eggs? You must be a millionaire. Innovation
only during
that's why we ransomware.
Disclaimer: only on security tests were authorized network.
All right, guys. End of tangent. Let's keep going with the slides.
All right. We had advances in encryption and strategies for active threat mitigation being pushed as security solutions. What do you guys think of those as mitigations for the shit we've talked about?
Is somebody trying to roll their own encryption?
They shouldn't be.
No, they're trying to do quantum safe encryption, right? And because of that, I think I've also been reading some stuff, or I've heard stuff about the time value of the encryption that we have on data currently, right? And so then you talk about data lifecycle management. I'm all for active threat mitigation, right? I think, like I just said, assume breach, and if you don't have an ability to react to it, go cut your brakes in your car and see how well that works.
Works good for me sometimes.
Don't do that, please. Just kidding.
It makes life interesting.
That's it for the slides. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes now, since it took an hour and 7 minutes to cover about 20 minutes of news. By the way, I covered this shit in my weekly morning meeting in about 5 minutes, just because we're not talking about everything and I'm just ranting real quick. So,
but you also don't tell your coworkers about your only pwns.
I did actually share that with one of my coworkers, and I'm surprised that he has not breached that info to HR.
Let's try it. So now over to Havoc for the hacky weather forecast.
The hacky weather forecast. Trisha Takanawa next. No.
It's raining sideways.
You're gonna get pwned. Back to you now.
So, moving on, software bill of materials. How do you implement it correctly? Are there any open source solutions that have good data sets they can pull down to actually tell you what your software you're running is built on? So I want to find Log4j in my environment, right? So I want to look at all the Java shit that's running with that stack that's got that logging environment set up. For as an example, I have not seen anything open source that your average community, average company that's not a larger company that can afford the solutions put out by ServiceNow or Rapid7 or any of these other large security/ticketing vendors to do this, at least do it well. Does anybody come across anything open source or at least not going to break the bank that can do this?
Dependency track is out there. It's a little hard to set up, but it does function properly. It's an OWASP project originally. So that's an option.
So we already did an episode on SBOMs, but I wanted to hear Dataplex's rant about this stuff. So let's hear it, man.
Man, yeah. So long story short, screw the SBOM. It comes from a physical concept, right? Bill of materials. I'm big. Oh goodness. I don't think that it's like it does provide value, but to assess that, to have the capability and the speed to do that without the cost being exceedingly high, right? Is I'm going to say it's one of the last things on my list. I would prefer behavioral analytics of built software, right? I'm going to mention NixOS. I'm going to go to things like a company called Appland AppMap, right, which maps your endpoints and does visualization of your data flows. So identifying data flow and yes, the packaging. For me, at the end of the day, when I'm looking at the supply chain for software, I don't have any really good, trustworthy sources, right? NPM, Maven,
Yeah.
NuGet, right?
We've seen
like
NPM
Brew,
packages too get compromised. You
Well,
know,
Go,
NuGet
like the recent
packages.
Go. And
Yeah.
even it gets really nuanced with Go, with Google hosting a compromised package, which was intentionally put there, that because it was in a cache was being missed by the thing that actually like the scans come back clean because it's hitting the primary source, right? And then that took them a long time to even tell, like they were telling them, hey, this is not good, and to get action on it was hard. So,
and if that autist hadn't found that issue with the upstream package for encryption within SSH a while back, just because the connection took a little bit longer, yeah. If that guy hadn't dug into that got pushed. It was already in bleeding edge repos at that point. I mean, it could have gotten pushed to everybody, and that was just because one guy was doing extra due diligence. And I think that was a Google guy too. Not to shit on Google all the time, because I do, but I mean, they do have pretty good red team guys, and arguably they need to for what they do. But the fact that they're able to detect shit like that and other people are not, says a lot of people need to up their game. SBOM seems to be a pretty good way, at least from if you're a GRC guy and you're saying, how the hell do I do this? Where I know at least what programs are in my environment. I can get a list of program, vendor, and version number fairly easily. But how do I cross-reference that and figure out the underlying technologies that they're running on and then check those for vulnerabilities is a whole other ballgame. And I think that CISA put out a mandate saying companies should start adopting SBOM. And it should be part of your security stack. But if you start to look at the pricing for the few tools that are out there to do this that are not commercially available, like the OWASP one that's free, for instance, I mean, arguably you're going to be investing either time of your personnel to set up an open source one and maintain it, or you're going to be buying an off-the-shelf solution that can do it. But I've not seen any off-the-shelf solutions that are affordable for SMBs, maybe for Fortune 100 and 500 companies.
But I'm gonna challenge it right again. So the speed of, if you go look at the GitHub stats and what they're fighting over there, right? To spin up 1,000 repos that are clones of a valid project and introduce vulnerabilities into 6 of them in a right, based on traffic to your packages, like how well you're able to SEO poison your targets, right? Like there are current things that you can do with GitHub where it only pushes the exploitable version for a pull that it's like in a time window, right? And then it removes it and overwrites the commits as if it was never there. So you've got a vulnerability. Your scanner says it's clean because it's actually scanning the source, right, that it expects to see. So we're talking about whitelisting and endpoint protection at the end of the day with SBOM.
We're also talking about like if you're releasing a release version on GitHub versus the source code, and who knows if you actually compiled the release version from that source code, or if you're using different third-party libraries because your environment's set up differently. Like a lot of corporations, they have internal repos where they compile from. They could be pulling down a good version, or they could pull down a backdoored version. It's hard to tell when you're running just from the binary that's already compiled for your.
Now we're talking. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
one more statement, and I'll go back to you. Right, even those expensive tools, right? That is one of the things they do if they have caching layers internally. So you end up with a compromised supply chain through the utilization of some of those enterprise tools anyway, right? Go
Well,
ahead.
Pacer?
you were talking about supply chain attacks, and one of the best ones I've ever seen is actually hacking the distribution channel for some of this code. So, like, instead of trying to backdoor the repo, just hack into the CDN and replace the files there, right?
Oh
And then-
yeah.
And then
That's
try
They've
to
done that
do
with
that. It's
they've
like,
done that with
no
cache
proxy.
poisoning attacks too.
exactly,
They've been
yeah.
backdooring
Yep.
CDNs with cache poisoning,
Yep.
which is just retardedly simple and shouldn't be a thing, but it is.
So
Um,
I guess my rant about SBOMs, right? To wrap that up, open it back up. I've just taken a different approach now, where my IR is so much more valuable than my prevention at this point, because the rate at which an attack can materialize, exploit, and land and disappear itself is much faster, is much more likely than any ability, I think, at scale and time to manage SBOM, right? Yes, you want to know what's in there. If it's part of like a partnership of, I'm using your software or in my environment, do I want that SBOM? Yes, I do. Right, but that's a targeted kind of thing. But as soon as they push an update, right, who's doing SBOMs on every update Microsoft sends you? Unless you're reversing it to determine what you should put in your,
you're not.
how to split this
Nobody's
week.
doing
Right,
that.
you're not, right? So who delays updates because of the expectation of failure? Everybody, right?
I'd say most companies have at least a 3-day wait list before Tuesday before pushing out. Hopefully, they're not doing it on Friday. But
Right.
Patch Tuesday has been a thing forever. And I don't think too many companies are actually rolling out said patches on Tuesdays because of all the times it's broken shit. For instance, you push a Microsoft Windows update that may work on somebody else's infrastructure, but when you push it to your specific hardware, it blue screens your shit. And then your users are all pissed at you. And then you're fighting to get shit back up in the middle of a week. And you should arguably have a testing and deployment area
That's right.
with the same hardware
but-
that you've got that you're pushing for your end users. If you have a golden image for your users, it should be running the same image. Test it, make sure it works, and then push to production. Arguably, even people using Intune, people using other SSS, what do they call it now? It's not SCCM anymore. It's not what the hell, whatever it's called now. That fucking thing.
Yeah.
Like, arguably, the people using that
Buzzword.
are not always checking first, because we still see companies who push an update that takes out a whole batch of computers that they didn't expect, because it's hard to have, say you're trying to keep up with the times, you're giving new laptops to executives, maybe everybody else is running your old shitty Dells, right? But even if you have a fairly homogenous ecosystem with just one vendor, if you're acquiring another company, now you've got maybe Asus in the mix, other things. It's hard for, I would argue, a company's division that is tasked with patch management to have a physical copy of every kind of laptop or every kind of desktop that's going to be in their environment to test on before actually rolling out an update. There's an expectation Microsoft's going to test this first, or other vendors are going to test their shit first to make sure it doesn't brick systems.
Yeah.
And that's just not really there. I mean, for especially what they're charging for to keep using Windows 10, if you want to keep getting updates after October this year, I think they should be testing on different hardware, ensuring before they push something to production as a patch to fix an issue, unless it's a critical 0 day that they need to fix now and they don't have time to test on everything, to do a better job, especially Microsoft, of ensuring,
I mean, pull back out of the like that instance, right? And on the macro level, it's unsustainable. At the end of the day, right? To do this properly, you're going to go back to what CISA based this on, which was a bill of materials, a physical bill of materials for a physical build of something, right? That's where the concept comes from. Cool. When you ship me a stack of servers, I'm going to look at the receipt, I'm going to throw it in the trash, right? Or put it in the filing cabinet or whatever, and I'm ripping boxes open, right? I'm not even actually probably verifying. I'm verifying the end result of the product. You think like you'd have a much better chance at tracking the change over time, right? In terms of like And I don't want to go behavior but yeah, right. So could you do almost like a commit based, change log of what's going on in the system and then correlate that to
See,
supply chain
the question I have
vulnerability?
is would that been effective if, let's say, the Taliban used that to analyze their pagers, right? No, they still would have gotten blown up, right?
Nation state, sorry, give a pass. Script
Okay.
kiddies.
Got it.
If you're Israel standing up a pager company in Lebanon
If
yeah,
you're fighting
that's
massage, you're getting massaged. I'm sorry.
yeah, straight up.
Hold on, I'm getting it now.
Goose goes honk.
But to the other thing we were talking about, some of the challenge in making sure machines are patched, some of the hardest machines I've heard companies and a lot of critical companies, right, like power companies, whatever, will have police, right, or like the police, they have workstations in the vehicles, and a lot of times they're hard to update. They have a long service life. They don't always have a data connection when they're out in the field. They're hard to sort of get your hands into and make sure they're patched. And it's a vulnerability point for a lot of organizations that have setups like that, where it's like if someone stole, because it's also highly likely that it will be stolen, right, out of a truck, and then it's like, what could they do with that? How do you address that problem?
Trains have a similar problem. I was talking to a train conductor friend of mine, and he said they're still running Windows XP in the engine.
They're probably safer than the rest of us right now.
Probably.
I dropped XP out of my exploit kit a minute ago, theoretically.
I have a version of Kali that's specifically for compiling those 32-bit ones that they actually used to use on the OffSec exam. Because like there are some.
4.
No, it's still a Kali version. It's just a 32-bit one that's now kind of depreciated.
You sure it's not Backtrack?
No. I've got Backtrack too, but I'm talking it's an earlier version of Kali that's 32-bit and still can compile some of those. And yeah, you can cross-compile. I'm not going to say you can't. But
Can
for
confirm.
some of the things like on the old exam, you need to use the old machine to get it to work, especially on like an XP box. If you wanted to compile a certain exploit that was usable on a certain system that used to be on the exam, Dataflex can probably talk to this better than I can. You still had that VM for that purpose. Hey, look, there's a flying cat behind you, Pacer Tracer.
Yeah, I know.
Flying cats.
Yeah.
I was taking flashbacks to back in Solaris, like when everybody was running IBM PC compatible and Sadmin came out, right? And you had to compile against a Solaris build, and so like there were a lot of favors exchanged for that on IRC back in the day.
Well,
but
oh yeah. Back to that point, I don't know if you guys have ever done any kind of product selection for ruggedized PCs, but they're always behind, 2 generations behind.
Mm-hmm.
And they always have stuff like, that's clearly exploitable. Like, it might be BitLockered, but it has a DMA port on the side. Like,
medical devices, the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And here's my thing against so SBOMs are not capturing the full context necessary to make a good decision. So if you think that you're getting security by developing this complex long document, right? We've all looked at 50-page pen tests of false positives, right? And had that same feeling of like, damn, my time is, I want my 20 minutes back, right? Because at the end of the day, with a perfectly secure, your SBOM passes all the scans, right? You have absolute knowledge of every bit that is going to flow through there with a default password on a service, right?
Porter Tradecraft made a point.
Also,
Cummins trains are running software that was developed by BlackBerry in 19.
My man.
Also, I see
and it's
Frank is
3-year
trying to
service
get
limit. It's like,
turkey.
how do you secure that? I don't know. Yeah.
I was just going to make the case. Somebody just sent me this and asked me if it's legit or bullshit. I think it's bullshit.
It's
Because
$2,000. It's bullshit already.
It's more than that. It's $2,000. You're right. I thought.
Oh,
it was
that's
more
just
than
the
that.
pants. Oh, you've got to be
It's $3,000
kidding me.
for the whole thing. So like $5,000, right? And you're wearing essentially a tinfoil outfit, right?
It's a tinfoil suit.
If I saw someone in public
it's
wearing
supposed to
that, I'd
block
be very
EM
concerned.
shielding. It's literally a tinfoil
Wait
suit.
a minute now.
I mean,
Why couldn't you just make it a lining?
what I'd make fun of
Why
them
does it have to be on the outside?
Couldn't you just go spend
Right.
like $5?
MC Hammer called, and he'd like
Also-
That's what I
his
was saying.
pantsuit back.
Couldn't you go and get one of those thermal blankets that are
Justin is right. It needs a
emergency
hat.
blankets? I mean, it's going to have the
He
same
needs
RF
to
It's like
blocking
Better Call Saul, right?
capability.
Yeah.
It's
I want to
bullshit.
see the testing on that
Snake
because
oil,
that's not how
bullshit.
that works.
Hold on,
From
guys. I gotta go
the
get into my
comments
build suit
are,
and
like,
like
completely
compile.
right. He needs a tinfoil hat to match that outfit because, like, if we're doing the drip, we need to be doing the drip all the way.
No, but
Like-
for real, that's not really how that works. I want to see the testing on that thing.
That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
How do you QA test that? You kidnap a Teletubby in it.
It definitely failed the SBOM.
Yeah. Probably dropped a few F-bombs on that price tag, too.
Huh. Porter's like, I have a Faraday hat to go with it.
That's
I
right.
think he actually
Yeah.
probably does.
He does.
No,
but my question
he's
is,
got-
how much does it cost?
It's a lot. I've played in it. His Faraday cage is badass.
Well, didn't
Okay,
they moved the
I'm-
whole office though, so it wouldn't be there anymore.
I'm gonna bring it back home a little bit. SBOMs.
Bring it back home. That's
If you have the resources and the criticality of service that you need a Faraday cage, and you can go look at some of Google's and I'm not gonna say Microsoft. They don't have a great track record right now, but right, Google for their data center and what they do for signing basically the power supply on like every layer up is a stacked set of signatures. The effort to exploit that, right? I would trust SBOM if the fundamental layers of that and the thing that is validating and supplying it are always guaranteed to be secure.
See, you can see their methodology and how they build Chrome OS and Chromebooks, right? But then there's some exploit on the NXP chipset, so it's like, you know what I mean? When you're dealing with consumer devices, it gets a lot harder. But when you're dealing with enterprise, yeah, I see your point.
I think
Oh,
if we
that's a
still
good
have
point.
passwords and live off the land and write things where you can just rebuild Mimikatz and get LDAP and Cisco, like the SBOM's not our solution here. It's a lot of things to make it look fancy and befuddle the folks that can't understand like your reaction to change and your ability to detect a change that's malicious or even human error and respond to that appropriately. Like, hey, I stopped a mega world affecting SSH exploit because I saw a 500 millisecond delay in performance testing. That dude's my homie, and he didn't believe in SBOMs at all, right?
Fair.
So, moving on to the next topic: vulnerability management at scale. Okay. Now, when
So-
we talk vuln management, Sledge, go ahead.
Let me propose a question. You've got, let's say, infinite amount of servers that you've got to manage, and you need metrics and vulnerability scanning and vulnerability management. So the idea is continuous scanning for compliance reasons, some every 72 hours, some every 6 months, whatever. But you have to be able to track the vulnerabilities that you find and then the ones that are fixed. What's the best way to go about that? And let's say hypothetically that the scanner itself is HCL app scan.
Wow, that's awfully specific thrown in there at the end.
Well,
But
you could
go
do this with, there's tons of tools that can assess the state of a patch system, right? Tanium could do this. You could use a data aggregation tool like Exonius to do this. There's tons of solutions for this. The problem is that they all cost $1 million plus to set up.
Let's say money's no issue. The problem in my hypothetical here is reporting and seeing and tracking what's being fixed and what's actually there.
Are we talking
Both of
about-
these tools that I mentioned have vulnerable, like a registered database for full management.
Okay.
yeah, and you like Nessus, right? Insight VM is their corporate product that uses the Nessus scan engine, takes
Right.
all those results, pops them in a database, and then can integrate with like your Jira or ServiceNow or whatever you're using, and then create tickets to assign to groups who then need to fix that shit and automate that to a degree. But the tracking of that it's very important to get it right, because a lot of the times you can really overwhelm people with tickets for useless issues that don't need to be fixed right away if you're not doing it right and prioritizing what needs to be fixed. And instead, essentially have people fixing bullshit that bears no impact on your actual exploitability. And there's also a difference between what CVSS considers a high versus what would actually be in your environment the most likely thing that would lead to an exploit or
A
somebody gaining
network-based
access.
exploit that you have no protection for, right? You have no compensating control. But
Right.
I think there's also something to be said about notifying teams that aren't going to do anything with this information for weeks, and then that exposing a map to an attacker of how to exploit your network, right? There's that
Right.
aspect that we need to consider as well, as like, are we telling people how to break in when we, you know what I mean? It's sort of like, how is this going to be managed? If you're going to do it in Jira, well, if you don't have your Confluence instance set up right, it's
Right.
very easy to, glean that information if you have some basic level of access.
And if
So-
you're
access to that
letting
might not be
everybody
highly
within the
controlled.
environment see those vuln tickets, that's also an issue. That should only
Right.
be scoped to the people who need to fix the issue. But when it
This-
comes to setting these up, that doesn't often happen.
This is why I want to make sure that everybody understands the difference between a pen test report and a vulnscan report. And then when you have a pen test team and a DAST, how do they live together and work together?
They don't.
So, I've
Or
been
coexist, rather.
Yeah. So we've actually been looking at a different standard and a different approach on this altogether, and it revolves around prioritization of, I'll say, attackability, right, or the likelihood of exploitation of a vulnerability. So CVSS doesn't really give you the capability to determine if an exploit is realizable or not. So that's number one, is that most of the tooling today assumes all exploits are equal, right? You've got some of the cloud stuff that has attack path built into it. Palo and some other tooling, right, has this.
Well, even IVM has a risk sense score, which is
Right.
based on what they know about your defense in depth, right? And it'll say like,
Yeah.
this is exploitable over the network, or this
So-
might be exploitable, but there's a compensating control in place to detect.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And in terms of reporting the maturity of a vulnerability management program, I'd rather see the reduction in exploitability, right? The reduction in the potential to realize an exploit, as opposed to a full remediation of something, right? If you can take a bunch of mediums and highs, let's say, and reduce that down to what I would say is effectively a low, right? Or by the time you get to that thing, I've triggered IR, right? We've already got some defense layers that are intentionally built around that. That shows the maturity of a program over time and the capability of that program to manage vulnerabilities, rather than a very simplistic, like on-off binary, have we remediated or not?
Yep. The idea of it is to track the progress of the security posture over time.
Yeah, because if I can put it right, so this is a great, let's say, hypothetical. You're running Fortinet on your edge, right? And you had a really bad week, month,
Fourscore and Fortinet.
Fourscore and Fortinet, proxies ago. Okay, so you got this vulnerability. Pen test's going to pop it, right? Your pen tester's going to hit that and exploit it and land with results. Your scanner's going to see it and report it as a vulnerability. What's your remediation here, right? I take it offline and provide a different tunneling capability, right? My maturity here would be like Tailwind, right? I'm just going to drop my edge and rebuild an edge over here that's a different layer of defense, or potentially put something in compensating there, right? So how do you track that?
In terms of management, I would say prioritize the pen test report and then update the database and see if everything's fixed and have a retest. That's all I can think of.
Yeah. Right. So that is the challenge in there, because we're assuming you're talking about 10 layers in, right?
It's hard to do on a huge mass scale.
So, Evelyn, what do you think from the perspective of an attacker, or perhaps as somebody who does SecDevOps, right? When it comes to a penetration test, the results of it versus the scan results of a vulnerability analysis, what's more useful maybe to you if you were trying to secure an app that you wrote that's hosted in the cloud? Would you rather have a pen test or like a VA that lists everything that's wrong with it?
Well, let me phrase this a certain way, because as y'all were just saying, yeah, there is a difference between a vulnerability assessment report and a pen test report, but both of them really do need to be secured. One of my favorite attacks I've ever done, and this was completely legal as it was authorized assessment. I'm watching y'all feds, but I was able to pop their green bone.
Oh, nice.
And
Default
then I just
password?
had everything. Yeah, default password. It was the easiest pwn of my life because they had like 6 criticals in there that none of them had ever gotten around to. And I'm like, oh, hey, thank you for doing all the enumeration work for me. That's great. It had the whole network layout. It had every machine, all the IPs. It was just chef's kiss beautiful. If only all tests were that easy. Saved me a lot of in-mapping time too. But like, if I'm looking at it from the blue side of things, which I am not blue, I'm just going to be clear. I am very, very far from blue. I have never done blue professionally. But I would imagine that I would probably rather have the bone assessment if it's something I'm actively developing that I have not released to the public, simply so that I can cover more ground in trying to patch it myself without really worrying about, without worrying about the total attack chain. But if it's already released, I'm going to want to see the whole chain. I want to see how far y'all could go.
Well, when you're developing something, what do you think about having to use a proper CI/CD pipeline where every time you push a code commit, it needs to be reviewed either by an AI or another person on your team to make sure that that code commit's good, won't cause issues? And do you think that would slow down the dev process, or do you think it's something that's necessary?
Or
So,
a SAST.
No, I
Or a
believe that is
DAST?
all of that is part of a mature CI/CD process.
yeah, like
Code
there's
review
no
is
option
absolutely
here.
essential, even
Yep.
if
It
it's
is-
post deployment and you do a
Like-
rollback, right?
Well, I
I'm
want to
going
hear
to say
everyone's opinion too.
something
Yep.
AF.
Alky's turn.
I completely agree that this is essential, and in fact, it's non-negotiable. And yes, okay, so the developers are gonna whine, "You're slowing down the process." But if you've ever met a developer who wasn't writing code at 3 a.m. with 2 beers and 3 Red Bulls in their system, they're not a developer, and that code is going to be jank. All right, we all push some jank-ass code to the cloud sometimes. A lot of the time. There's a reason
Push up.
for the code audits. There's a total reason, okay? And those reasons aren't just to remove the fact that I named a variable fuck. Those reasons are actual quality reasons. Sometimes our brains are going one way and we just roll a nat one. Everyone does it. I'm not going to say I'm a master dev. I'm very much not. But even the best devs I've ever worked with have given me absolute brain rot as code, because we just all have those days. And I have noticed that the same devs that were whining that code auditing slows down development are the same devs that I've had to go through and correct their code that actually slowed down development far more than any initial code audits would have.
Because when you're building on a shaky foundation, now to replace the entire foundation once it's built is a whole process.
You're putting shit
Dataplex,
on
your hand
shit.
is up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that is honestly something I've been focused on in my work arena. Is I'm gonna go all the way back to requirements engineering and say that it depends on the request and the amount of prioritization on security, right? So if you ask your developer to build Fort Knox, they'll build a Fort Knox, right? Sure, they may make a mistake, and sure, you're gonna have attackers that can defeat that, right? But if you ask them to build a 3-sided building, skyscraper, and then you're like, why are things falling out of the side of this? And they're like, that's what you asked me to build, right? For our team, which is a much smaller team than the organization that pushes change on us, right? My focus has recently been pushing that back, right? That is not security introducing problems. That is not any of our problem. Like, if the request was good and had accurate information, right, and proper resourcing, then you're probably getting through all of our stuff very quickly and easily, right?
The process that I think is missing often in organizations is not so much code review, right? Because that's pretty standard. Developers expect if you have a mature CI/CD pipeline that they're going to have their code reviewed. But it's more purchasing decisions for products that do help desky things like management, and the review process for security, where like you're installing an RMM desktop agent, or one of the popular clients that can execute code, and it makes the whole network vulnerable because they're easing the
Visual Studio
job of help desk, right? The review process for implementing tools used by the IT support teams, I don't see that often in organizations, and I think that's a huge gaping hole that more organizations need to address through having a review process for those things and involving their IT security team in those decisions.
When it comes to like startup culture versus corporate culture, startup culture, you're almost always going to see devs who all have local admin. A lot of times they're running Windows boxes. Sometimes they're smart enough to be running Linux boxes, but regardless, they're going to have the ability to do whatever they want on their own box. How do you secure against one of them doing something monumentally stupid, like the guy who was running a Plex server on his own one that got popped that led to a major breach recently? It's like, if you are letting them run their own software, do you then have the right to tell them, hey, this shit that you're running on here is not okay? I mean, it's the one thing if it's your home box and we are doing a really shitty implementation of work from home. It's another thing if it's a corporate laptop and we're giving you admin rights and telling you this is the software you can use and what's whitelisted. But if you're a dev, you have the ability to install outside of said list because you're doing development, and then that getting abused. Like, how do you balance that, guys?
Well, I think this goes back to the question of should you do split tunnel or full tunnel VPNs, and because you would see that traffic, right? If someone's running a uTorrent instance in the background and it's running out of a split tunnel, the only way to detect that is with an agent on their machine. And if they're admin or running Linux, they probably either disabled it or there's not one available, right, for your.
Yeah, but if
I'm
you're
a big fan of split tunnel.
If your agent's not reporting in, man, like you're kicked out, man. You don't even.
Yeah,
you should lose
like
service.
That should be an automated rule. Like if your thing is not reported in for 48 hours, you revoke access. I agree.
Yeah.
Or even less than that, arguably. But
even if it's not malicious, right? If it's just intentionally like shadow
or
IT.
using like the Bradford dissolvable agent before allowing somebody on the network, as an example, being like, we need to check the software and security stack that is compliance with our bare minimum security compliance before you have access to the network. And we do that every time. Shit like that, I think, should be more commonplace, but it's not.
Well,
college I went to actually made the students do that, but exempted the teachers from it, which I thought was retarded.
Using your work computer to mine Bitcoin?
That I'm okay with.
but oddly specific.
It was called SETI at home. I don't know what y'all are talking about.
Back to what Evelyn mentioned, like doing code review. The other thing is the newer developers tend to use tools like AI to generate some code, right?
Like AterChat, right?
You're looking at this code and you're like, who made this? Like, why are you using 4 node libraries to like do something very simple that is like 4 lines of code? What is going on here? And it's like,
you keep it to 4? That's amazing.
It's not hurting anybody. Do I approve this? Like, how do I reach this developer and say like that you're overcomplicating this? You know what I mean?
Code, bucko.
I think there needs to be more. It comes down to communication between teams too. A lot of the time, the security team at a big organization does not directly interface with the developer. They're going to be talking to that developer's manager, who will then talk to the developer. It's like very different than if you're in a smaller organization where you can be like, hey, Joe, what the fuck did you do? What are you doing with this code? You can't do that. You have to be like, write a professional email. Due to some recent auditing of your code, we've come to some conclusions about the way you are engaging in your coding practices, and like corporatize it. And when you do that, you lose that ability to just tell the person, cut the shit and code straight, and don't rely on all this bullshit. It's one thing to be going on Stack Overflow, copying and pasting code like they used to. It's another thing to rely on AterChat and just describe what their task is and have it write code and then them have that submitted to production.
It
And even when
depends.
you try to do that communication, it could take weeks.
So can I jump in on a couple of these?
Yeah, go for it.
Please.
You're not going to stop the AI train, right? There's just too much stupid in the world to really take it on. So I think it's also a very young technology. Like in terms of comparing it to architecture, right? It's literally like we were nomadic and now we have mud huts, right? So where's it going to be in 10 years? Like you've got to give technology, just like, you know, if we'd stopped and been like, you know what sucks is the 286. This is bullshit. It's never going to go anywhere. We're done, right? So that train's left the station. Strong change management. And the other thought that came into my mind was like, okay, if you do all this code review, I'm phishing your PR system, right? Rather than your email. Communication, collaboration, right? And impact radius. So I love the idea of almost geofencing my systems, right? It's hard. It was hard. It's easier now to do
Use
kind of
UWB.
Yeah, right. It's just like, okay, can I localize this down to like, if this change always comes from here, from this person, right? And now all of a sudden they're in Russia or China, right? Then we're shutting the whole process down, right? And the other part is for security teams. I'm trying to have a good analogy. I could sit there and watch the mechanic work on my car, and I can understand like generally if he fixed the car or not, right? But I also don't understand if he cut a cable that's gonna, you know, eventually lead to a failure of a system, right? I can see the change, but can I evaluate it properly? I think getting in front of that change management process and pushing the responsibility of those things back to the introducer of change is how to get to scale.
It's best effort, bro. You got to trust it.
Approved. You're going to prod, buddy. The other thing I don't like about this from the review process, and I'll turn it back over after this, is, you know, you're asking Bob to basically be like, wow, if I failed the code review, like, you know, Alice just killed somebody in the company, and right.
I think it also comes down to corporate culture. Like if you fail a code review, maybe you accidentally introduce a security vulnerability, that should be a learning experience. It shouldn't be, we're going to like reprimand you. Well, it's like,
it depends. If you're the 911 system, you're absolutely fired, right? It depends on the criticality.
I mean, understood that different environments, different shit, right? But
I would still disagree with that though.
Maybe to a degree. I mean, there are definitely use cases if you're coding in like a critical system and you're, like he's saying, it's the 911 system and you've introduced a critical vulnerability. Yeah, that could be a fireable offense, right? But what I'm talking more about is your average company who's got coders working on various projects, having a better line of communication between the people who need to either audit their code or the people who are going to maybe be doing reviews, where they can just talk frankly and cut out the bullshit and be like, hey, this is where the issue is, fix it, rather than, well, I'm going to need to escalate this to your manager because I asked you to make a change to the code, you didn't do it, and therefore yada yada yada. I think that corporate shit's toxic when it comes to development, and that's why a lot of the time we see these independent devs who are able to do so much really cool shit without corporate resources, but at the same time, are they using secure coding practices? And especially if they're using like a higher level language that has a more possibility to introduce issues like C or C++, if you don't know how to code properly, that there are some safeguards in place, whether it be an automated code review process in your CI/CD pipeline, having a coworker review and sign off on your code, so it's not just one person saying this is good and pushing it. But there's got to be, I think, better software development to lead to better software, period, and more secure. Dataplex, go ahead.
Sledge had his first. Go ahead.
Oh, Sledge, go ahead.
Corporate networks could be so much more efficient if they would have open communications between teams instead of going through all the freaking middlemen and all of like the checks and balances and the logging they want to do to make sure you're talking to people. It's like, just let me hit this guy directly and talk to him. We could fix it in 10 minutes.
Hey, Sledge,
I run into that
your
myself.
vulnerability management database that we all just agreed you shouldn't share openly, right?
What?
There was a lot of agreement earlier in the discussion about you shouldn't share your vulnerability management system, right? For it shouldn't be open for everybody. I kind of disagree with that. If you're going to have a culture where you're all addressing security,
Oh no, I'm not saying the vulnerability management system being open. I'm saying the communication. Like,
well, but
give me
okay,
the
but that's a
ability to
paradox.
talk to a guy.
It's a bit of hypocrisy, right? Like either you can openly communicate about security, and that means all the details about that, or you don't.
I think all of IT maybe within that scope, but there's no reason an end user who's nothing to do with IT should have access to change tickets that outline maybe a severe vulnerability in a product if they're searching within their.
You have to protect the
stuff.
organization
Well-
from insider threats, right?
There
No,
needs
no,
to be a segmentation.
There's a layer, yeah, for that.
My point though is security guy, IT engineer guy, instead of going boop 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 for 2 weeks, just go boop and get it fixed.
I mean,
Well, the issue is that you have to have a change management database in a large corporate environment. The change management meetings are usually once a week on, like, say, a Tuesday, right? And if you don't get your change in by that Tuesday, you have to wait a week unless it's an emergency change, which means you could have an issue exposed for 2 weeks that takes 10 minutes to fix because it needs to be done within the bureaucracy of these corporate environments. And there's definitely a lot of room for improvement with that.
Yep.
I want to throw out a couple of ideas here. Number one is that if you're in a startup, right? So let's go startup, drivers versus corporate drivers. Turns out they're the same. Is money, right? If I had to make a decision right now about we've got a critical vulnerability, or if we don't ship this software, we're not getting paid next week, bro. I'm sorry, you're vulnerable. Like
Yeah,
there's
they
a
say
hole in the
screw
plan,
it, ship it.
I'm out, right? There's no way, and this is something I think that as an industry we really need to tackle. This idea that the impact radius of connected systems there's nothing that is a comparison in history before it, right? There was nothing that had this scale. If you poison the food, it's a town at best, right? If you are a startup, there's no way possible to invest in security at any level of competency that does not immediately crater the business. And so you've got to understand every one of them that's successful is driven on need to business first and security if they're successful, right? You don't secure unsuccessful projects. So, so we almost need to have a way to reduce that scope and connectivity.
We've got
to limit
cybersecurity insurance, bro.
Write me a check.
Making our rates go up, please stop. But I think there's techniques to take the burden off of the code review process and speed it up, right? And one of those could be to take the basic bolts, like a light version of what you're developing, right? And release it open source and have the community find, oh, this is a vulnerable framework. There's an issue here, right? And fix those problems and then incorporate that back into the dev process.
The data doesn't show that that's true over time, right? Like XZ was there for 20 years, right? And then even SSH has had recent stuff outside of that was there.
I'm not saying there are going to be exceptions to the rule, but it should take some of the burden and speed the process up, right? And it contributes to the community. It gives you a little bit of like cred that you're developing this thing and you're releasing, public usable version, whatever it is, right?
What's the fastest change management process y'all have ever seen that you would put in contention to allow this to happen?
I can't speak to that. I've never been in an environment like this.
I've never seen it be able to either move at the criticality of security or the pace of business. You choose one.
It's one or the other.
It's a balancing act.
I was muted. So I have seen in some corporate environments the differentiation between what is considered a critical change control that will get fixed that night versus what's normally in your change control process, where you book out a time ahead of time, you ensure that there's a backup system and all that kind of stuff that goes into a change control and a rollback plan if something goes wrong, versus hey, there's a critical vulnerability in the Palos. It needs to be patched tonight. I don't care if what you push might break it. If you don't push it, we're vulnerable. It's like there's a different speed to when something's critical and actively exploited versus also something that's considered a 9.8 on the CVSS scale, but there's no active exploitation as far as like the KEV and other stuff.
To some of the points in the comments in the audience, I think a lot of people just operate and develop in production, right? And then roll back when something goes wrong. But
Undo.
yeah.
What if you just all your executives got laptops that like immediately realized all vulnerabilities that were throughout the organization? So like they're just getting like rammed repetitively. And they're like, I understand now. Like we'll fix this.
We'll have to play that again at the end.
I made another one for the end. Don't you worry.
Oh, nice.
I do agree. Security needs to move at the speed of business, but unfortunately, some businesses move at the speed of government. It's like, the bureaucracy that's inherent in some businesses in order to do something as simple as update a program to the next version. Look, I'm all for having a testing environment, doing it the right way. But when that also makes it so that patches are 3 months behind, for instance, if you're running like an Oracle environment, right? They put out their, I think 4 times a year, big update things. But a company that might be running that shit could be 9 months behind because they have a custom implementation and need to test all this shit before they roll to production so it doesn't break stuff.
Well, I think having a good stage environment is absolutely critical, and security should be harking on the developer team to automate that process so that it's fast, right? Instead of a very manual, like piecemeal, takes 3 months type of thing. More like, hey, we push this change out, the automation test fails, we can't push this production yet, we need to debug, and pushing that automation, sort of saying like we need to speed this process and make sure that these certain processes are mature is absolutely essential.
So there's also an argument to be made, like it falls on the C-suite. Do they want to spend a little bit of extra time in the development process to make sure security is built in, or would they rather yeet it and get woken up at 3 a.m. with a disaster on their hands?
Let's just be honest. They're going to follow their CIA triangle of priority, right? And security is not in that triangle; it's below it usually.
So we're just going to yeet it.
Absolutely, right?
Yeet
Unless you're criticals, yeah. Just lucky enough to not have a call.
Evelyn.
Nope, I lost it.
Yes.
When it comes to all the stuff that we're talking, I know you're more of a red teamer and doing like DevSecOps, but what would be like your key takeaway from this, from all the stuff we've talked about? What do you think is kind of the most important thing if you're working for a company, if you're a security analyst or engineer, that is the takeaway from the shit we've been talking about?
Business gonna do business things, dev gonna do dev things, hacker's gonna hack. Decide who you want to piss off.
Government's gonna government.
Government's
Can I
gonna
piss them all off?
Yeah, you can piss them all off, but you're going to at least have to piss off one because you can't make everyone happy. So what you end up having to do is just play a very careful balancing act and try not to get caught in the crossfire. Keep your head down, arrows above you.
At the end of the day, as long as you get paid.
Yep.
That's everybody's. At the end of the day, I feel like that's everybody's mindset.
I like what like companies like Wiz are doing, right? Which is basically leveraging the economy of scale, but in the partnership aspect. So they, on the backside of their deployment of their product, right, also will say, I saw this pattern in this customer's environment. I can tell you the details, but I also noticed that this pattern is very similar to something you have, right? And they're going to proactively alert those that are, so that minimal impact. I like that methodology there.
I'd be worried about NDAs at that point.
Wiz is not cheap, mind you, compared to some of the other tools out there. I've demoed Wiz. I like what they do. It's just it's a little outside my budget. When it comes to the tools that do this kind of shit, one thing I think is a bit fucked up, personally speaking, is companies like, say, BitSight or Security Scorecard that scan the entire internet without authorization. And then in order to see said findings, why they might have given your company an F, you need to pay for their service. Otherwise, when people want to do business with you, they just see a big F. And that, I think, is a pretty fucked extortionware kind of way of going about business.
Yeah,
and
they're the Yelp of security services, right?
Right? It's like there's got to be a better way.
Pay us money
like,
or we'll destroy
like
your reputation.
Our friend Jimmy,
our
friend Jimmy built a freaking awesome tool that he gave us access to called WizQuads that I really like. It's pretty cool, but like comparing that to the enterprise solutions out there, the reporting and integration between that which a hacker would use to like look at an external attack surface versus what like a Nessus scan would provide is just like a night and day kind of thing, because you can take that XML data from Nessus, you can bring it into your ticketing system, you can do all sorts of shit with it. With a regular PDF report, you can't. And it's like, I think there's some really cool tools out there. One I used to use called RoboShadow, which was a combination of OpenVAS and some OWASP tools in the cloud for like $10 a month. Great deal. But there's no way I could get a corporation to buy that if they need to then integrate those tools into their ticketing system and vulnerability management platform. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement where you could take these things that are out there that are fairly cheap, if you could build good integrations to then get that data to where it needs to go to make fixes.
That's a good note for everybody out there building tools. Focus on integrations as well.
I think that a lot of businesses focus on products that have supportability, so they tend to shy away from unsupported open source tool sets in their chain because they need. And I think I wish there was more businesses sort of like Red Hat that took embraced the open source community and made it a supportable thing that businesses could.
I don't think they ever
right?
proved out that model, right?
I think you're right.
Looked like it worked, but at the end of the day, they wear the tie now, and that's because their approach on open source failed. They have awesome tools, right? OpenShift versus Kubernetes, like the Opinionation there, their advanced security tooling, which used to be StackRox, right? Awesome stuff, right? It just doesn't. It wasn't able to sell, and that's kind of where I was going. Thank you for mentioning it. Was as a community, how would we support an initiative that does that at a cost that's efficient, and that is the entirety of like the effort. So
a lot of businesses shift to like managed security services for that very reason, right?
Right.
Because they might not make the tool, but they can support it, and they have a tool, a chain to get back to if there's a really
like
deep problem.
Huntress, I like Huntress for that reason, and especially in the small to medium business space. So,
what's your opinion on guards? I've been seeing a lot of ads for it lately. I've not tried it or know anybody who has.
I haven't seen it.
Man, I haven't heard of Huntress in so long.
The other thing that I'll say, I hate cybersecurity companies that are publicly traded. You're already at friction with your initial stated goal. Number two, a lot of companies are kind of a one-trick pony, right? They fail to pivot, and they end up in this merger and acquisition game. Palo, Cisco, right? Pick your poison, IBM, where it's unsustainable to do an integration which is effectively providing all the knowledge IP that you've mastered in order to produce this advancement, right? Integrations for a lot of companies equal a loss of their competitive advantage. So it's a friction in business that we have.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, so how do you find a balance that's like a good balance between a non-publicly traded company that's still investing enough into their ability to keep up to date and can provide like adequate services for the kind of shit we're talking about? Like, how do you find such a company?
Well, I'm going to use Huntress as a good example, or Black Hills Security is a good example, where they've intentionally chosen to moderate their growth in support of culture and longevity. It's very rare these days, but I want to say if their priorities are aligned with the business priorities of your organization, it should be a good symbiotic relationship, right? If they're out there to capitalize and they want to throw the biggest, baddest conference with lampshades on people's heads and stuff, like you're spending my money on what instead of my security? Yeah, So
I've got that.
I think there's something to be said about the, businesses sharing knowledge across, the industry. Has essentially been siloed and almost outlawed, right? That's why consultants are so big, right? Because they can come in from business to business and provide that shared sort of knowledge set of tools and techniques and, the business interoperability operations, like things that you know what I mean?
And actually, with that point, we're planning on doing an episode with another friend of ours that is currently listening to talk about that.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect
and we might
segue.
do it this week because his schedule doesn't line up with Mondays, but I think he would be an awesome guest, and we are pretty much free most weeknights when we're not doing other shit. So we're going to have him come on probably Wednesday and shoot the shit about that. So
That's a
work.
captured quote right there. Fight with honor and you will win. Thanks.
Indeed.
Like it.
I forgot how to check back after I put the virtual background. Oh, there we go.
Everybody go pick up your favorite 70-page SBOM report and read yourself to sleep tonight.
You remember
I'll get it on audiobook.
You're putting the audience to sleep, making it on. Yeah, put it on audible.
That's what my CISO refers to as toilet reading. Like when I wrote him an AI policy. There's some toilet reading right here. I'll get back to you depending on my fiber intake.
I don't like curly mustaches in my toilet at time.
This is a shitty report.
Well, if it wasn't before, it is now.
In there. Come up with their best ideas.
So Jason makes a good point. Ultimately prevent downtime, right? So if you're looking at it from a CISO perspective and you have those, CIA triangle, confidentiality, integrity, and that's not it at all. Confidentiality, I forgot what the CIA triangle, availability.
Integrity and availability.
Integrity, right.
Availability,
though. Yeah, availability is a big one. I mean, if you're testing in production, that's affecting availability. That's a reason alone to get budget to have a test environment.
I think it comes down to prioritization, right? Because for some organizations, like if your company's built on the trust you'd establish with your consumers, then availability may not be the best option, right? Confidentiality and integrity would be higher value. So if you're a platform producer versus a vendor or the 911 is an availability all the way, right? No shot. Healthcare becomes challenging because availability of some systems is critical while others should be shut off immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. We have a question from the audience. Any advice on pen testing firewalls? First off, if they're exposing their management interface to the internet, they're already going to be having a bad time. Usually, if you're pen testing and they've set shit up right, you're not even going to know what the hell firewall they're running unless they're dumb enough to be exposing, say, the SSL VPN endpoint, which is running on the same hardware appliance to the internet, which then you could enumerate. SSL VPNs are a good thing to look at nowadays, in my opinion, because a lot of them have vulnerabilities and not everybody's up to date on patching. Nobody should, if you're running Fortinets too, they've had a bad week. Also, it comes down to a little bit of luck on when you're doing the pen test, because honestly, sometimes there's going to be some shit out that is like one day that people have not had time to push and patch against, whereas other times everything's going to be up to date, just depending on when you're doing the testing.
I think you should test firewalls like condoms from the inside.
I was going to ask, a lot of times security teams want to skip the defenses, right? And they want to get straight to what's behind it. How do we fix the root of the problem instead of testing all the compensating control mechanisms, right?
Don't allow out any. I mean, everybody does that nowadays. At least most companies I've seen, they're going to allow outbound any. Because they don't want to deal with setting up the rules to specifically whitelist the regular traffic based on patterns that they see. So if you're doing a pen test and you would like to get a shell back after your user has clicked on your exploit or however they've executed it, most of the time we're using reverse shells nowadays. So if you're a firewall admin, first off, if you're using UPnP, turn that shit off. Second, set up specific port forwards, but ideally you shouldn't even be doing that anymore. You should be using things like Cloudflare tunnels as an alternative to opening ports directly on your network, in my opinion. Dataplex and Pacer, you take it from here.
Oh, hold on.
And Slash.
Sometimes if you see like the firewall on the external edge, you can get lucky with IKE scan, and every now and then you can actually do something with that. It's rare, but it happens.
It's incredibly hard now to even iterate, right, or enumerate the footprint, right, the fingerprint of edge firewalls. I'd say that have better choice, like chance hitting an ODA or right pulling.
Well,
one of those
maybe I
zeros out.
misspoke. I think the IKE scanner is for VPNs. Yeah, I believe that's what it is.
I think that the firewall assessment should be sort of a separate assessment of itself, right? And it should be analysis of the way it's configured and what capabilities it has and what bypasses it's vulnerable to, versus part of a product test, right? People try to loop that into like, we're not turning off the firewall, you're testing the firewall, you're testing this app through the firewall, and it's like, well, you want a focused assessment, right? You want to focus on the end product that is the thing that they're protecting, right? And then the layers of security around it should be a separate focus, I believe. And I think that those things get convoluted sort of in testing often, and that's a problem I think I see, because it creates a very unfocused sort of willy-nilly type of security test where it's like, well, the thing behind this is vulnerable to SQL injection, but I can't do the basic payloads because there's a signature for or 1 = 1. It's like, well, that's not security, right? I think that those should be separate focuses.
And then you have to define, are we testing the firewall itself or the rules and trying to get past it?
And again, to that point, I think you should be testing not only the capabilities of the product that they've implemented, but the configuration state which they have it in.
Yep.
You should do full stack testing as well. Molotov cocktail that firewall and see if it really, stops fire.
There's always a bypass. There's always an encoding that you can use to like skip past it, or I mean, in my experience, it just takes time to step around firewalls, which you don't have unlimited time in assessments.
But if you're a real attacker, right, you end up with an opportunity, a crime of opportunity. Oftentimes, you're waiting, and you get something right during an update window or an outage or whatever. But and that's why the industry is going towards resiliency. Sorry, let me finish that up.
I was pointing at you, yeah.
Yeah, so right, the industry right now is, because of cloud and automation and the speed of attacks, is talking about resiliency, right, and recoverability. And that's, I guess, ultimately, again, SBOM, like all this preventative or knowledge stuff. If I could just be like, damn, that sucked. That car, like I was driving my car and I hit a wall and I just got out and got into the next copy of it and just kept driving, right? Then I don't care if I blow up 100 cars because I have 101, right? And it's still effective.
I wanted to elaborate on Pacer's point he made about given enough time, you can get past a firewall. So what do you think about segmentation tests and I forget what document it is, but they recommend using the specific nmap command for segmentation tests. Do we think that is an accurate standard to go by?
So when I was working for a company, they had me doing PCI segmentation testing as a large part of my job. And I found fault with their methodology because they were having us VPN to the client site, which would establish a tunnel that essentially we defined the routes for, meaning that they were not the same routes that the client had on their network. And when I called that to their attention, I no longer had a job. But my advice in general is if you're going to be doing that, it should be from a device on-prem that has the same routes as the other devices on that network. It should not, you should have an actual jump box that is, perhaps if you're trying to test where the user environment can get to, that is on the same VLAN, configured with the same DHCP server and scope, getting the same routes as your average Windows box. In fact, if it's a Windows network, just to alleviate any additional confusion between what a Linux host might get versus Linux, you should have a Windows box as well as a Linux box to test the routes. And you should literally just have them plugged into the same network segment as the users and same network segment as the servers to do it right. There are a lot of wrong ways to do it as well. And as far as specific Nmap commands, if we're just verifying connectivity, you can literally, you don't need any special commands. It's just you can use base Nmap commands like, do a SYN scan. It doesn't really matter what you do. We're just verifying that there's no connectivity between tunnel A and tunnel B. So it doesn't
to
need
your
to be anything
point,
special.
I think often organizations will try to set you up in a stage environment, and you'll have findings that are only applicable if for access to the dev environment, because the dev environment is going to be poorly secured. It's not going to be as clean as production, and convincing companies that it's important to test production in the state that it's deployed in, and it should be resilient enough to deal with security testing, because you have real world attackers that are going to be doing the same thing, right, against your infrastructure. So saying like, oh, you could take it down, and treating it like a baby that is going to fall over at the slightest touch isn't
Right.
like, we need to get our clients away from that. And I'm not sure of a good solution for that. Maybe someone else has a suggestion.
Well, just a quick pivot back to the general vuln analysis stuff we were talking about before. I remember one time Evelyn was setting something up for me that I had deployed myself and built myself, and she found I had a hard-coded API key in it and called that to my attention. I felt like an idiot. So, Evelyn, why don't you freaking tell us that one?
All right, so I was doing some work for Frank, minding my own business, just going through dev tools. Like, this was just like Firefox dev tools, like nothing fancy. Everyone has this in your browser, whatever, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, the heck is this weird line of, that looks like an API key. Are we sure it's API key? But I start kind of enumerating just that way, just kind of walking the app. And I noticed that there's some calls that are, of course, unauthorized, so I can't use them. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, let's just try it. So replace the key I had with that key, and holy crap, you can't tell me this is root. It's root. That was the main key.
Yeah.
That wasn't supposed to work.
That was not supposed to work. It's like, there's no way it's that easy.
Hey,
And I'm just thinking to myself, there's no way. Yeah, there was.
I think it'd be fun to sort of do a round of the most egregious code review that you've come across recently that is like a level 10 mistake that maybe the client was making, and it's like, please don't push this production. You're gonna get us hacked. Does anyone have any stories around that, or do we want to do a round of that?
But mine was obviously malicious. So we outsourced some code to a dev team in a startup I was with, and the code comes back, and there's this variable called logic bomb.
Okay.
It's base 64 encoded to call the CEO of the company, the founder, a bitch on her birthday. It was great. That was pretty egregious. Don't do that, guys. Hide your logic bombs.
I can't speak to any of this. I've never dealt with code review before, on like an official capacity.
So I am not like a great coder, but I have some decent tools for code review, and I found stupid shit just doing like actual static analysis of source code that when I brought to the attention of them, they initially dismissed as that's not a fucking issue at all. And then when they pushed to production, we saw an entire education department go down within 2 weeks when they got popped.
You see all the print Fs?
Well, it was essentially a learning management system for a state that managed all of their education teachers' records and things, like not the student records, but all the teacher stuff and like enrolling your kid in a school during COVID time for shit. And I am not, I told the people who were paying for this that I am not a coder. This is not my wheelhouse. If you want me to do a static code analysis, I will provide you with tool output and I'll do my best to verify it, but it's not my wheelhouse. And they were aware of this, and they still like looked over my report. They dismissed my findings. One of them was a critical. And then within 2 weeks of them pushing this code update that they asked me to review, their system was completely compromised and they had data exfiltrated. And it was the issue that I brought to their attention that they dismissed as not an issue. So I mean, it does happen.
I mean, sure. We've all been on assessments where it's like you find something and then once it becomes known suddenly and you tell them about it and you're like, please fix this. This is struts 2 vulnerability, right? That's what got Equifax popped. And it's like somebody told them about that 2 months before and they didn't do anything. But
I've got the t-shirt. Equifax, the world's leader in the distribution of your personal information.
we lovingly refer to them as Equihacks.
So Dataplex needs to wrap the janitors here. So I say we should do our best in the next 20 minutes to make this come to a close.
I agree. I just wanted
Good old
to
Southern
say
goodbye.
I do have a code review sort of story that I recently saw. Is we were doing code review for a medical device company, and they wanted to create this thing on their website that allows you to type in your zip code and locate a doctor's office that has whatever their service is, right? And the way that they coded it was they took your zip code and directly inserted it via wget using bash to Google Maps API. And I was like, please, they had no input validation checking. And I was like, please don't deploy this. Somebody is going to just inject a zip code that has a subcommand and it's going to get the whole, you know what I mean, infrastructure. They're hosting their own website and their own infrastructure. And it's like, it's going to get your entire AWS hacked. Please don't do that.
Nice.
Two that I vividly remember. Number one, global variables are a terrible idea in a multi-user system.
Yes.
And number two
Just ask
was
Toyota.
somebody who basically JSONified in the output the containing object of what was the result object, but that happened to be their ORM driver, which dumped everything straight to source on the page. So the whole connection and everything about it. Good times.
Good times.
The worst part about that was the app worked because they didn't know that they weren't supposed to do that. And so they were literally like processing that JSON in their app, right? They just dug down into that on the client side instead of being like, maybe I shouldn't send all my connection details to the client. Yep. With that, I'm out.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace.
Yeah, we can
Now write the mouse.
Well, thank you for. I was muted.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for your time tonight, and we'll touch base later, dude.
Don't let the janitor kick your ass on the way out.
Yeah,
Don't forget
Anyway.
to steal his cards on the way out.
Oh boy, that was a quick 2 hours.
Yeah, it goes fast when you're having fun, man. That's why I say, like, these casts may be long, but we have fun, which is why we do this. We're not like ad supported. We're not making money off of this, and I don't want to change it to a more corporate feel so somebody can put it on their resume. I like what we're doing. I think we should keep doing it. And if anybody in the comments has feedback about anything that we should be changing with the cast, we're always happy to incorporate it.
Or we're just going to laugh
please,
at
in
you.
the comments, while we're still here for the next 5 to 10 minutes, give us some suggestions. What can we do better? What are we doing bad? Who should shut up more? Should it be me who shuts up more or somebody else? Like, give us some feedback, man, so we can make it better, because that's what we want to do. We want to kick ass.
Somebody tell us all to get a haircut.
Yeah.
I need a haircut, and I agree. Dude, this is out of control. Look, this is like Jufro to the extreme over here. And you just covered up with a hat. So
where's my Red Mesa hat? Wait a minute.
Red Team Sinai, can you elaborate? That was at 9/11 a while ago. Then 21, all my code is a level 10 mistake. As far as the pen testing firewalls question, there's a entire course called Cracking the Perimeter from the people who put out Kali Linux Offensive Security. It specializes in that specific cracking firewalls, getting past the perimeter stuff. I know some tricks. I know some things that tend to work. But in general, I don't even have to deal with the firewall, because if I get a user to click an email and it runs a shell on their computer, and then I am catching that shell from my infrastructure, at no point, unless the firewall is going to maybe be decrypting SSL, which they should be doing, but a lot don't. And even if they do, there are ways around them being to figure out what's going on, like pretending, using a malleable C2 profile with Cobalt Strike, other things that are similar with different frameworks where you're disguising your shell better and not using what's just built in. There, you don't have to essentially deal with the firewall if you can compromise the user outside of that. Like a lot of places also are moving away from traditional VPNs to zero trust solutions. So even if you pop a user nowadays, you're only going to have access to what they have access to at that given time, and they might not be logged into what you want to get into. Cracking a corporate firewall nowadays, unless there's an actively exploited issue or they're dumb enough to be exposing the management interface and you've maybe got one to try to find and fuzz yourself, there's not much you're going to be able to do unless there's like a 0 day for it that you're privy to. Or if you have friends who maybe blab their mouths too loud at DEF CON telling you they found a 0 day and this is how to exploit it at Circle Bar. Other than that, you're going to be mostly SOL with most corporate firewalls that are going to be up to date, unless they're dumb enough to expose the management interface to the internet, in which case it's a whole different ballgame.
It's funny you mentioned Circle Bar. I've literally made that exact mistake.
We all know that guy.
Oh no.
So many stories, it's not even funny.
What's the heart one called? The
Bleed?
Love Bar? Oh, I can't remember. It's in
If you can't remember, that means it was a good DEF CON.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's my kitty.
So there doesn't
Pixel!
seem to be anything in the comments here that's telling us on something we can do better. But if you are watching this on the replay, feel free to use the comments area with this YouTube video. Give us some feedback, man. We really do want to make this the best cast we can. So we need to talk more red teaming stuff. Good. Hell yeah. Let's talk more red teaming stuff in general and focus more stuff on that.
Here's my hacking drone. Wait a minute.
You think we could get what's his name? AZW on here, Sledge?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
maybe. He was hesitant, but I think he agreed.
All right. He's a pretty good internal pen tester, I'd argue. Can definitely shoot the shit and talk about good red. So boom is what is red team? So we have blue team and red team as general terminology. Wait, hold on. I'm going to get into the nuance. Penetration testing is not red teaming, and there's purple team, which is a combination of blue and red. Blue teamers are defenders. Red teams are attackers in general, but there's a lot of nuance with the term red team specifically, because a red team engagement specifically refers to a long-term engagement that there's no holds bar in terms of the rules and the scope. It's more like true threat actor emulation, whereas a pen test, you are limited by a scope that says what you can do and cannot do in a penetration test. You cannot go outside of scope, whether it be a physical penetration test where you're pen testing a building security or an actual security infosec, whatever the hell we want to call it, network penetration test. Whether that be, there's also internal and external penetration tests. So some people only want you to look at their stuff from the outside. Some people you're going to ship a jump box to, and you're going to pretend to be a user and act like a user. There's a lot of nuance in this. But in general, red team, when most people say, they're referring to attack. And blue team, when they refer to that, they mean defense.
Yeah, red team is offensive. Blue team is the defense, right? And then they meet in the middle, where sometimes offensive security engineers will work with the blue team to sort of create a purple sort of team to like share knowledge and say like, these are the techniques that we're using. These are the things you should be on the lookout for. This is how you recognize these things in logs.
It requires a lot of cat herding to be able to make a red team work well with a blue team. Because a lot of the time, the red team guys may be very good at finding vulnerabilities, but not so great at explaining how to fix them.
Yeah,
so
purple is more like...
who can not only find a vulnerability.
I've heard a lot of clients come back with feedback like, we need more people. We need to hire more people who have a hands-on ability to work directly with the stakeholders and have these things that are identified fixed, right, as part of the engagement. And I'm finding that a lot more
Well,
recently.
when me and Sledge work together, we do that. When somebody asks, like, hey, can you walk me through how my guys can fix these vulnerabilities? Sometimes it's included in the initial scope of the pen test, if that's what they tell us ahead of time. Other times they come back like, hey, we really need some help fixing some of these issues that you found, whether it be like locking down group policy so that you can't do the stupid any user can create 10 computer accounts thing and then get a computer that's in the default shit, which you can then use to run other tools. Or just walking them through basics of fixing a web app that might have been written 20 years ago.
Like
I've done.
too. Yeah.
No,
hold on.
So there is a limit, right? So if we're talking like they're using ancient jQuery, ancient Bootstrap, and it's on a 20-year-old now. It's on a 5-year-old version of Drupal that hasn't been updated. There's a bit of nuance there between that should just be rebuilt versus we're going to walk you through step by step how to fix it, because there is a limit.
So hold on. I was always told in my over a decade of experience that you never tell somebody exactly how to fix it. You can give them remediation, recommendations, but you don't give them like, here's what you do. You say, hey, here's something.
For your insurability, you don't have hands-on in the actual solution. You're just
correct
guiding the person who is to fix it on what their options.
Which is
correct.
Why David has 2 companies. He's got freaking he's got Trusted Sec and he's got Binary Defense Systems. And when they want somebody to fix an issue that company A found, company B then is referred. And while they might be sister companies, there's that scope difference where legally and for compliance, the company that found it is not then telling them step by step how to fix it.
Yeah.
And that is a good way to go about it. Whereas Sledge has Desert Rain Security and I have Steel, Treza, and Associates. So therefore, if Sledge has somebody who has an issue where it's found on his pen test, he can be like, Frank, you and Evelyn, and go walk them through how to fix that shit under a different umbrella. And that is, I think, okay.
That's a good idea.
Well, we've done it. So yeah, it is a good
Yeah.
But back to the question that Boom had. I think red team is often a misused term in the same way 0 day is often misused, right? In the security industry, it's like a buzz term. People want to slap it on everything. It's truly overused and not used appropriately. So you will they'll just slap red team on an engagement that's like, no, this is an assessment. This is not a red team engagement.
It's same with cloud, dude. I'd be on interviews. They say red team, and I'm like, what do you mean? And they say cloud. What do you mean? They don't even know.
They're just using buzzwords. Exactly. Yeah.
It's like cloud could be. I was like, what are you talking about? Do you mean AD in the cloud, or are you talking about the configuration of the cloud environment, like the IAM policies and stuff? And they're like,
Very much in the same way that the term hacker has a negative connotation in the media with this evil guy in a hoodie who is just trying to exploit things for a profit, right?
Even if we do wear the hoodies.
Right. It's the same sort of thing with those hot
we need braided hoodies.
Look, there's a lot of so stereotypes in general, not so great, right? But arguably the hacker in a hoodie stereotype I like. I'm okay with, because I've got actual hoodies that I wear when I'm at Starbucks doing things.
I wear pea coats.
Yeah. Now everybody
I got
dresses
a really
different,
cool trench coat.
I do, dude. In high school, I used to wear a trench coat, and they used to make fun of me and call me, what's his name? The dude from Columbine,
Klebold.
Eric Klebold. Yeah, I was like, dude, I just like trench coats because I'm like into goth music and random shit, and I'm arguably a little weird. And they actually
have pockets. Women's clothes don't have pockets.
And then people are like, you're in the trench coat mafia. I'm like, there is no such thing as a trench coat mafia. You're retarded. But then they changed the dress code and said specifically you cannot wear trench coats.
You should have started a band, Trench Coat Mafia.
I should have.
Anyways, carry on.
My point was that the connotation is often very one-sided, and it's like you're evil, bad person, right? Instead of, they don't really give the people who are in the security space trying to do better and make things better, like they often group them into that negative sort of connotation.
I don't think that is as prevalent these days as it used to be.
Used to be, yeah, agreed.
Well, there are
I think
arguably
people are.
some things in popular culture that have portrayed hackers in a better light recently.
The Scripps
But-
Network is one of the worst offenders. All the news channels for them.
Right. And if you look at the like popular culture media, like maybe NCIS, it's jokingly laughable about the way that McGee and like Abby will type on the same keyboard, do hack
Two
something.
idiots, one keyboard. Yeah.
Right. It's a great meme. But at the same time, at least they're not portraying hackers and people who are breaking into systems in a negative light. I think we need more of that. And also, arguably, there are a lot of people within our own industry who don't do much to help that. They like the I'm a badass hacker kind of
The street
persona, and they continue to perpetuate it. Look, arguably, many people in this industry have done stupid things when they first started out, but that does not mean that they haven't grown or like changed over time. And hackers have very valuable skill sets that can help companies just as much as they can harm companies. And when you have people who are hacking ethically, who are going through the proper channels and engaging in responsible disclosure when they're doing bug bounty, people who, when they're doing pen tests, are following the scope, people who, when they're doing red teams, making sure the SOW is covering everything that's going to be within the scope, people who are doing things the right way. And there are a lot of good companies out there, arguably Black Hills and David's companies, and a lot of other companies too, like AI Hunter, which used to be Milton Security. Arguably, that guy's great. They do good work. A lot of companies also contribute back to the open source ecosystem by having like a GitHub where they take internal tools that they've written and eventually phase them into letting people use them for free. I love that part of the culture. I think we need to see more of it. And
group.
Yeah. That's also a good one. Hey, Red Team Alliance also, I mean, I don't particularly like Deviant very much, but I like the work that he does, especially when it comes to the lockpicking community. The 3D visuals of locks that he's put out are really good introductory for people who are getting into lock sport to understand how a tumbler works, how to get a pin above the shear line. Like without those visuals.
RFID security advice and knowledge is second to none. Yeah.
No, I met the dude who does their RFID stuff at RTA when we used to go to the 702 meetups there. Yeah, good guy, very smart. And they have a few guys, actually. I think there's two of them who work on their stuff that I've met. But they have knowledgeable people who are not afraid to share knowledge with the community. And I think that's what we need more of, are companies who are willing to contribute back to positive hacker culture shit and not just go for we've got the most badass hackers who are going to reach your shit and show you how to do it.
To that point, I think some of the people who are support, in IT, like the people who are responsible for disaster recovery, they often get overlooked, right? And unappreciated, but their role is so important. If Mr. Robot has taught us anything, it's like those people are ultimately important, and involving them in a security test of like, is our backup system resilient to a ransomware attack, or could it be sabotage, right? Those are things that I think are missing focus often in assessments, and we need to give credit where credit is due and sort of bring those people into the limelight and say your work is very important, and doing that makes the teams stronger, right? Sledge.
There's also a good juxtaposition here to make, or a point to make here, between you could be the most badass hacker ever, but if you're the most antisocial motherfucker and you can't communicate with other people, you're never going to have a real job. So there's a balance there.
Look, I'm fairly introverted naturally. I have gotten way better at getting out of my shell for longer periods of time, but then I need to go recharge my social batteries. I argue there's a lot of people like me who are very good at things like hacking, but maybe not so great at the social interaction part, and that can be a learned skill.
Feel called out.
Yeah. Maybe there's more that could also be done in helping those people who are maybe socially awkward get better at their communication so that they can land better jobs, get better work, and just get along better with people. Maybe there should be stuff on training platforms outside of your typical social engineering shit for just general interpersonal skills.
I usually say just go to a conference, make a friend, and find a friend that's an extrovert, and learn from them.
You're my extrovert friend, and
Yeah.
you and I, we had lots of people bang your cock at DEF CON, and that was lots of fun. But arguably, I still needed to go back to my hotel room after that and recharge for like 3 hours.
Yeah, me too.
It literally just drained the shit out of me just being around people for that long, especially that many people. Anyhow, Toastmasters also great resource if you've not heard of it. They have free meetings all across the nation. You can go practice giving a speech in front of people, get feedback on it. Really cool free org to go join and maybe even support. They helped me.
Also, if you want to practice giving a speech, do it on here.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a talk you want to give at a conference and you're not sure how it's going to go, feel free to hit us up. We'd be happy to either give you a private, like you show us your talk and we give you feedback, or you can even go online with us. We don't give a shit. We're happy to give feedback. I think between Sledge and I, we've probably watched more InfoSec talks than pretty much any other person alive.
Adrian Crenshaw, shout out.
Dude, I fell asleep to Adrian Crenshaw's channel, and oftentimes would wake up in the middle of the night and get really into a talk and then be exhausted at work the next day. Like I've watched almost every video on that channel. When I look at my YouTube metrics, I go through it like between Def Conference, Adrian Crenshaw, SecurityTube, and a variety of other channels. I have literally wasted probably arguably at least 10 years of my life watching YouTube videos about
sounds about
shit.
Right. Yep.
I've had to enable like the check that so it doesn't autoplay after you fall asleep and then tell you you've watched, because then you lose track of which ones I've actually watched, right?
It's like shit.
Yeah.
I wanted to see that one. I slipped through it.
Right. Yeah. There's a little thing you can configure that double checks, like, oh, you're there. Sort of like the Netflix, are you still watching the screen?
Yeah, and also there's what Jessica's saying there.
I want to address what she's saying.
Go.
The thing about going to these hacker things is I was the same way. I was extremely introverted my first time, and somebody showed me the fact that you can just walk up to anybody and ask them anything. Be like, what kind of dog do you have? Or just some dumb, stupid question. And most people there are willing to talk to you. So don't be afraid.
Yeah, ask them their password reset questions too. That's a good,
they'll take it as a joke, and then boom, you got a conversation starter.
Or just do like me and get adopted by Sledge at DEF CON. Find an introvert and just follow them around like a lost puppy.
I'll introduce you to everybody.
Just Sledge, how they're all key. I see how it is.
Hey, Sledge introduced me to you, and then I ended up following you around, and I annoyed him, so it worked.
I was busy.
Does anyone remember the booze phone, where you could just call up and wherever you were, you describe your location at DEF CON and someone comes to the cart and gives you a beer? Like, what happened to that?
DEF CON culture has changed a lot.
We can't do the beer thing anymore.
The LVCC.
Check this out. If you're running a DEF CON community, which is what they used to be called, like villages, right? If you're running a village and somebody wants to donate money to your village, the LVCC gets a 25% cut of that.
Go.
Yeah, pretty fucked up, right?
Go find them on the monorail.
Arguably, there's a lot of cool things about doing it at the LVCC, but I also don't like that on the doors it says just by entering the premises you consent to having your biometrics enrolled for security reasons and all that fun shit that they're looking at you on camera, building a facial rec profile of you and tracking where you're going in there. Like, arguably, that's not something I'm a fan of.
Well, I'm sure all the other hotels are doing it anyways.
Do we have any, to that point, do we have any comments for the feds watching? No. We would acknowledge that.
Remember, if you subscribe to the Only Pwns, you will get a free Peg a Fed t-shirt. I'm kidding.
But remember, registration is disabled until March as we scale our service.
Right, and you'll have to hack your way in because we don't just allow memberships to everyone.
Oh, we're doing the, what's it called? Have I been pwned?
Early hack the box.
You have to figure out
hack the box.
Knock.
Thank you. Hack the box. I remember that challenge. That was fun. I cheated on that challenge, honestly. I found a YouTube video that walked me through how to do it.
Everyone did.
Arguably. I'm sure some people figured it out on their own.
The obscure
like
Reddit
people who made the
posts.
video.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say it. Well, I could say
Dude.
it. I actually found something on the darknet or on Tor. Some guy had a post with all the flags for a bunch of boxes, like, I don't know, when Hack the Box was brand new. And a bunch of people were using that.
I actually know who posted that thread now. No comment. Okay. All right. Do we want to roll the VPN video and close out?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Sledge, anything else you want to say before you go pee?
Nope, that's it. Other than just signing off. If you're ready to hit the button.
Protect your
All right,
IP, guys.
I'm going to send you a Steel Trezza branded bottle of Poland spring water, so you can just use that after you drink the water in the future. Yeah.
Oh, you want to protect your precious data from the prying eyes of your ISP, the NSA, and your nosy neighbor? Well, good luck with that. But if you insist on not being a sheep, roll your own fucking VPN is the way to go. First, go buy a VPS. Don't worry, it's not like you're renting a server to host your illicit activities. Or are you? Then, install WireGuard. It's like setting up a secret underground bunker for your internet traffic, but without the risk of being raided by the feds. And the best part? You get to deal with all the fun of configuring your own VPN. Who needs user-friendly interfaces when you can spend hours debugging config files? Just generate some keys, set up your server and clients, and voila! You'll be encrypting your traffic like a pro. Or, you know, like a script kiddie trying to hide their torrenting habits. So why pay for some overpriced VPN service that's just going to sell your data anyway? Roll your own fucking VPN. It's like DIY for your digital paranoia. Trust me, it's a blast. You'll be the envy of all your friends who are still using public Wi-Fi without a VPN. Losers, roll your own fucking VPN. Secure. Fast. Pain in the ass.
I love
Okay.
Remember, guys, roll your own VPN.
It's available. Somebody should register before we don't.
How much is it? Quick,
I'm
somebody
Like,
do it.
Quick, somebody
.com.
register
Sorry.
that, like, now.
No. If CrowdStrike were here, he would do it for us. Anyhow, so that is it, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Please give us feedback, comments, so that we can make this even better. We appreciate all of you who tune in and watch this each week. You guys are the real MVPs, because otherwise it's us just screaming into a void. And I'm hitting the end stream button
The
now.
ether.
Goodbye. Oh, I gotta set an
Peace.
outro video. Let's go with Ferris Bueller. Well, Ferris Bueller's good in general.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.